Hello, my brothers. I'm currently working on 3 new channels, and I really need your support. I've pinned all 3 of them on the homepage of this channel. As soon as each of those channels reaches 1,000 subscribers, I'll start uploading brand new and incredibly exciting series for you to enjoy. Also, please don't pay attention to the old videos currently on those channels. I'll hide them once each channel reaches the 1,000 subscriber milestone. Your support means the world to me, and I truly appreciate every single one of you. Thank you so much. Never passing up any opportunity to grow. That's the true mark of an overlord in the apocalypse. I know very well that relying on selling information for profit is the stupidest approach. If handled poorly, half of the remaining human race will be wiped out. When that happens, even if we want to reap the harvest, there won't be anyone left to reap from. But things are different now. Hope Village holds the information advantage. So why not use it to create auxiliary value? And that value lies in defensive structures. We can develop and sell defensive structures. Taking advantage of this great disaster, Hope Village can absolutely accumulate a massive amount of resources. Before I could even finish my thought, Intelligence Captain Pei Xiao jumped up, unable to hold back a shout. We can make a mountain of resources from this disaster. Having gathered intel for days, Pei Xiao knew better than anyone that the survivors currently in the wasteland, whether lone wolves or small to medium shelters, had almost zero production capacity, but they still hoarded plenty of resources. As long as Hope Village launches the first defensive product right after announcing the information, our chances of dominating the market will be extremely high. And if successful, a massive, life-saving trade wave will immediately take place. Getting past the initial panic, under Pei Xiao's lead and my subtle encouragement, the management team's brains started working in overdrive. Some pitched ideas, others laid out the logic, from selling defensive equipment and disaster relief materials, to seizing the chance to harvest prestige and reputation. It was a true brainstorming session, and clear plans quickly took shape. I listened quietly for a while. Seeing that the situation had stabilized and the team could map out an action plan without me even saying a word, I smiled, stood up, and left the meeting room, accompanied by Zhong Qingshu. Following the pipes near the shipyard, we climbed up to the bottom of the ship and sat down. Above us was a sparsely starry sky. Below us, the vast, desolate wasteland. The wind carried the dust and sand of the ruined earth, sweeping past and swirling into a strangely quiet void. Who would have thought that in just 6 days, this place will turn into a living hell? Have you really made up your mind? Zhong Qingshu asked softly. In this wasteland, people can accept you as a hero. They might even cheer for you and worship you like a god. But if you want to rise above the hero level and become a true leader, someone with a real voice, they won't allow it. She pointed toward the distant wasteland. She didn't spell it out, but there was no need to hide it anymore. I was no longer the hidden figure I used to be. The Sumo fan base had skyrocketed from tens of thousands to millions, becoming the largest organization in the wasteland. Yet, all this time, not a single official organization had stepped up to suppress it. It wasn't that they didn't see it, nor that they couldn't do it. It was because they still needed the hero. Sumo, think about it. I replied with a question instead of a direct answer. If I announce the information and then head to the new world, what's the best case scenario? Announcing the disaster is easy. A single broadcast is all it takes. Hope Village just wants to stay one step ahead to leverage the advantage and grow faster. But the problem is it really that simple? Those sitting at the top, the ones dreaming of sacrificing most of humanity to exterminate the alien races, plunder resources, and open treasure chests, could they ever accept the existence of a savior whose voice holds more power than the official system? Suppose I actually help millions survive the great disaster. Then, if I say one sentence, do not gather, everyone must scatter to survive, the entire plan and organization of those higher-ups would completely collapse. Who would dare trust the official system anymore? You could choose to notify the official shelters and let them relay the information. But it's useless. You're from Huaxia. They won't let a nation like ours dominate this new world. You're thinking too poorly of them. No, I chuckled dryly. They've done it before, and they're still doing it right now. Once we reach the new world, factions will be fractured. You take one territory, they take another. Playing a city-building simulation game? That only happens in stupid fairy tales. When interests clash, there's no such thing as peace. But ordinary people are different. They don't care about interests. From beginning to end, all they need is someone who can lead them to keep living. Survival. That's right. The only thing ordinary people care about is just surviving. But there are also those who, upon arriving in this wasteland, start dreaming of dictatorship, immortality, and leveling up their lives like a game. Can you say they're wrong? With me no longer sitting at the head of the table, the discussion in the meeting room began to buzz. With Chen Xin stepping up to coordinate, everyone debated passionately on how to exploit the great disaster, how to gain more benefits, and how to live better. Outside, the night breeze blew gently. Zhong Qingshu sat there, listening in silence. Then she suddenly understood what my so-called higher perspective was really focused on. Times had changed. Those people would never understand, nor could they, what this desolate wasteland was hiding. What they were chasing, what they were doing, was nothing more than an exact replica of the old society on Earth. But I was different. I was going to shatter their dreams, turning this world completely upside down. The capable would rise, and the weak would be eliminated. Stop trying to impose Earth's morals or rules on me. As for what happens in the process, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Seeing Zhong Qingshu fall silent, staring at me as if looking at a completely new person, I burst out laughing and stood up. With the precedent set by Yin country, if anyone still clings to the idea of returning to the old order and surviving by huddling together, then as long as I'm not the one in control, I absolutely won't hand my life over to them. Therefore, in the current situation, there's only one thing I want to see most: maintaining the chaos. The transfer of people from Earth follows a pattern. As long as the death toll from the disaster crosses a certain threshold, the game system will continue to bring more people in. And for this migration to the new world, no matter how optimistic you are, the casualty rate won't be lower than 20 to 30%. When that happens, the game will definitely continue bringing the remaining people from Earth over. It's highly likely that my parents will be among them. Once I'm reunited with my family, I won't have any attachments left. And right now, with the sub-legendary Hope, the food god's bomb capable of blowing up all of humanity, and the mysterious system in my hands. If I still try to live like an ordinary person and hide from everything, the only outcome will be getting betrayed and swallowed alive. That's why tonight, when I announce the information to Hope Village, it's the first step. I'm dragging everyone onto a tank that bears my name. Alright, I know what you're trying to say. I want the alien races dead too, but definitely not like that. Seeing Zhong Qingshu hesitate, about to speak but stopping herself, I suddenly cut her off, pulled her up, and jumped off the ship's roof. There are always traitors among humans. And if the alien races have a game system panel like we do, then humans knowing about the disaster means the aliens know too. But until we have a way to wipe out the marine alien races, sacrificing tens of billions of people for a victory on land is completely pointless. At this moment in the meeting room, everyone had also touched upon that issue. From quiet to heated, after realizing the true value of the information I brought, everyone seemed to wake up. Thinking is done, now let's act. Whoever needs to borrow tools from the Hope, just say the word. The second test run will start tomorrow night. I'll announce the information the day after tomorrow at the latest. The time between now and then is Hope Village's most precious window. Dealing with this disaster, it's hard, but it's not impossible either. For the rest of humanity, 3 days of preparation is enough. Just 3 days is enough to save a portion of humanity from extinction, and enough for Hope Village to dominate the defense market first. Now, Hope Village no longer needed me to micromanage every step. After over 10 minutes of brainstorming, the management team had come up with a preliminary concept for producing disaster relief tools. All materials can absorb energy, just to different degrees. Hope Village's job is to find the material with the best absorption rate, mass produce it quickly, and then seize the market first. Whether others encroach on our territory later doesn't matter anymore. As long as we devour the first slice of the pie, it'll be enough for Hope Village's long-term development. Got it, Brother Suemo. I'll get everyone on it right away. This time, we guarantee we'll knock it out of the park. Watching Chen Shun lead the management team out of the meeting room with the intensity of marching into battle, I nodded at Zhong Qingshu, turned around, and followed the moonlight up to the peak of Iron Rock Mountain. The first test run had quite a few issues, but none were fatal. From building a secondary fire control radar and fixing bugs to digging a trench, it was all just simple engineering. The biggest problem right now was just one: how to survive the initial impact of the torrential rain with minimal damage. If we built a massive hangar, based on the Hope's dimensions, materials weren't an issue, but time was the key. The ship was 80 meters long, 21 meters high, and 14 meters wide. Building a steel hangar large enough to house it would not only be labor-intensive, but also extremely time-consuming. With Hope Village's current production capacity, even going all out, it would only be finished right before the disaster hit at the earliest. And if we only found out the hangar had issues during the simulation, the remaining time to fix it would be practically zero. The only option was to take a detour. I had to think of another plan. My eyes landed on the slope at the foot of Iron Rock Mountain. Down there, the cave of the lioness Connie still flickered with firelight. A bold idea suddenly flashed in my mind. I smiled, then quickly followed the dirt path at the foot of the mountain and climbed up. Come in. Ever since officially submitting and integrating into life at Hope Village, Connie had gradually gotten used to human etiquette. Without opening the door to look, no one would ever guess that an alien race lived inside that rustic room. Given permission, I pushed the door open and walked in. Connie was deep in thought and nearly jumped out of her skin. Suamo, why are you here? Ever since witnessing the terrifying power of the Hope firsthand, Connie had returned with a mind full of calculations. She even skipped dinner, losing track of time because she was overthinking. Previously, even though she agreed to cooperate, deep down Connie still believed our relationship was purely mutual exploitation. As long as she seized the right opportunity, she could absolutely rely on her summoning abilities to close the power gap. But now, things were different. After seeing the Hope with her own eyes, she finally understood that even if she grew several times stronger, she could never catch up to me. The more she thought about it, the more panicked Connie became. For long-term cooperation, the most important thing was the exchange of benefits. I could give her good living conditions, protect her, and even help the lion race restore their glory. But what could she give me? Just an alien core? If another beauty showed up and did a better job than her, wouldn't her position be replaced at any moment? That thought made Connie, an alien warrior accustomed to battle, so terrified she lost her composure. Don't be tense. I see you haven't had dinner yet, right? Then let's go. I'll treat you to a late-night snack. Hearing her stomach growl, the corners of my mouth curled up in amusement. One man and one lioness left the cave together. We grabbed beef, spices, and a grill from the supply warehouse, then headed up to the salt drying platform at the top of the mountain. From there, we had a panoramic view of the Hope, and we could also take in the entirety of Hope Village scattered around Iron Rock Mountain. It had been over 10 days since I last cooked myself. I didn't expect my first meal back at the grill to be barbecue, and eating it with her, no less. I lit the fire while skewering the marinated beef. The spices looked ordinary, but they were mixed with energy crystals. You didn't even need to eat it often. Just smelling it was enough to leave anyone mesmerized. But today, Connie didn't seem to care. She just stared blankly at the Hope, as if deep in thought. I took out 2 bottles of beer, popped the caps, placed one in front of Connie, and leaned back, lying down next to her. The pale moonlight shone, and the cold wind gently brushed by. After watching our ceremony today, did you ever wonder if your lion race held a farewell ceremony for you back then? I took a sip of beer, the rich malt flavor spreading across my tongue. As expected, Connie didn't answer right away. She picked up the beer bottle and took a huge gulp. It was her first time drinking beer, an alcoholic beer at that. Connie choked on the spot. A farewell ceremony? No, we don't have things like that. Anyone chosen to be sent to this world, the very moment they're chosen, is already considered dead. Alcohol loosens the tongue, and beer is no exception. Connie gradually opened up, talking nonstop. Chosen? You mean you guys didn't come here voluntarily? Of course not. This world is full of slaughter, death, and periodic natural disasters. Who would want to come here? We were all forced. Every time a batch is chosen, it's no different from sending people to be buried alive. So many lions wailed in despair when their names were called. Looks like it's not much better than humanity, huh? Connie spoke human language incredibly fluently, even using idioms. If you didn't look at her lion head, no one would ever think she was an alien. What about you? Weren't you chosen too? Hearing Connie mock her own kin, I asked back with a hint of surprise. No, I came voluntarily. If I hadn't signed up myself, with my status as the youngest priestess of the lion race, how could I have been sent to this damn wasteland? Connie lifted her head, her face full of pride. You want to know what our alien races came to this world to find, right? It's fine. I can tell you straight up. The thing we are looking for is a divine artifact. An item to become a god. To become a god. Hearing those words from Connie's mouth, even though she remained calm, I couldn't hide my shock. From what I knew, only those holding special authorities could become gods. This should have been a top-tier secret. Yet now Connie was saying that all the alien races knew about it, and even considered it their goal for entering this wasteland. The shock of this information was massive. That's right, Connie nodded, her tone slow and deliberate. Since I was born, no, since I received my inherited memories, I've known that all the ancestors of the lion race, across countless generations, have followed the prophecy of the ancestral god. All of us were born to continue entering the wasteland, searching for the artifact to become a god. The detail is, it's been a very long time since my race last found it. Without the artifact to become a god, the ancestral god's protection weakened, causing our strength to decline with it. If it were a few tens of thousands of years earlier, our lion race might already be the royal overlords of this wasteland by now. Connie chugged the rest of the beer in her hand. This signature earth beer tasted a bit strange at first, but the more she drank, the more addictive it got. After I politely opened another bottle and handed it to her, along with a few freshly grilled beef skewers, Connie started gossiping like a string of firecrackers. I knew it. Hearing about the artifact to become a god, there's no way you wouldn't be curious. Who wouldn't want to become a god? But unfortunately, whether it's inherited memories or the patriarch's instructions when I left, none of us know what it looks like. All the alien races only know those exact words. And that thing takes on a different form every time it appears. Even its state of existence isn't fixed. Taking a bite of beef and a sip of beer, Connie spoke while chewing. She looked no different from someone sitting at a street barbecue stall on Earth, gossiping with a friend. The night wind kept blowing, and the hope still stood tall in the distance. I suddenly felt like this scene was way too much like office workers blowing off steam on a weekend. What about you? Didn't you say you came here voluntarily? Didn't you also come for the artifact to become a god? I pressed on, my eyes narrowing slightly. Well, it's true that before I came, I had a little fantasy about it. But now, becoming a god, do you actually believe that stuff? It's impossible, Suemo. I've never seen a god in my entire life. Oh, wait, the only god I've ever seen was already killed by you. Connie stood up, laughing and shaking her head, as if wanting to throw that dream straight into the ocean. She started dancing, a bizarre dance. If an ordinary person did it, they'd look insane, but with Connie, it carried an indescribably mystical vibe. A gentle whirlwind gradually formed around her, as if responding to her dance. What if I told you that during this disaster, I planned to go find the sea god? That sentence was like hitting the pause button. Connie froze in place. The whirlwind vanished, and the beer bottle in her hand dropped to the ground with a heavy thud. What? You're going to find the sea god? Weren't you planning to go to the new world? Connie's budding buzz was instantly sobered up. You're not going to find a god, you're going to die. Knowing there's a tiger and still charging into its den. You're really something, Suemo. Do you have any idea who you'll have to face if you want to find the sea god? Isn't it just the 5 great royal clans? What's there to be afraid of? You said yourself that your race used to be a royal clan, and now they've declined. That proves the royal clans aren't invincible. Besides, I still have you. I chewed my meat and raised an eyebrow, my eyes brimming with confidence and arrogance. Are you kidding me? The 5 great royal clans, and you dare say it's nothing? Me? What the hell am I worth? I only have 2 scrubs in my hands, a crippled chef and a one-eyed sniper. And that one-eyed guy? I had to spend 50 points on a chip just to train him. Who are you planning to kill with those 2 burdens? The cursed fox? The crystal dragon? And when you get chased down, we'll probably get skinned and have our bones ripped out. Especially when people think you have the artifact to become a god. If we don't get hunted by millions of lunatics, what else would happen? Connie's voice was both bitter and furious. The fur on her body stood on end like a static-filled feather duster. Come on now. Don't sell yourself short like that. Seeing Connie take the bait, I burst out laughing, stood up, walked over to her, and pointed at the hope towering in the distance. Look, our hope. It's sub-legendary tier. Trust me, as long as you grant it a little blessing. We'll cut through the waves and sail right out. When that time comes, let alone the alien races, even the 5 great royal clans, we can ram right up their asses. Your crippled chef will cook all kinds of alien meat. Your one-eyed sniper will become the pride of the lion race. And you, Connie, you will fulfill the reason you volunteered to come here. Do you want to become a god? Follow me, and one day, you will become the new lion god. The last sentence rang out with sheer dominance. I looked straight at Connie, my eyes resolute and burning with fire. It was so intense that even Connie was stunned. So, can you just bless the hope and then stay on the mountain with the villagers? Connie swallowed hard, looking at me, the guy who had just spouted a string of crazy talk. She instinctively took a step back. There are crazy people every year, but the scariest thing is when one latches right onto you. For the 5 great royal clans, fear was etched deep into the bloodlines of the alien races. Even sitting on the hope, without matching strength, the probability of victory was still 0. Oh, my dear Connie, how could you say something so heartbreaking? Taking down the 5 great royal clans. Don't you want to be part of that? In the name of the fallen lion race's leader, wash away the humiliation of the past and shout, 30 years on the East Bank, 30 years on the West Bank. Don't you feel the hype? I don't want to. Connie took another half step back, now almost at the edge of the cliff. Fear was clearly written on her face. No, you do. I smirked wickedly, reaching out and pulling her hard back in front of the grill. No, I really don't want to. No, you do. My eyes were incredibly serious, so serious that Connie had nowhere to hide and finally had to surrender. Can't you do it without me? Without you, it won't work. One asking, one answering, both dead serious. The rich aroma of grilled meat mixed with the spicy scent of cumin wafted up, but neither of us was in the mood to enjoy it. Our eyes locked, the atmosphere growing tense. Finally, but I'm just an ordinary priestess of the lion race. My blessing? No, your blessing is enough. Besides, don't you alien races have a clan war mechanism? When the time comes, I'll take you to fight a few battles, and you'll level up in no time. Every time Connie argued back, I had a counter ready to shut her down. I have to say, this kind of coercion really had a low-tier dictator vibe to it. As for the effectiveness, it was acceptable. But suddenly, as if remembering the blessing she had bestowed in the underground shelter, Connie shook her head slightly and plopped down on the ground like a deflated balloon. She picked up her half-finished beer, took a long chug, then grabbed a meat skewer and bit into it hard. Sumo, do you know where the true strength of our alien races comes from? Oh, I feigned curiosity, tilting my head to look at her. If it were before, mystical things like alien magic would have baffled me. But ever since becoming the food god, I had quite a few clues to chew on. Our strength doesn't come from the ancestral god, nor does it come from cultivation. There's only one thing, the game. Only the game grants us strength. And whether we're strong or weak depends on the ancestral god's investment. Once we're in the wasteland, we have to fight for everything ourselves. I became the youngest priestess of the lion race not because of talent, nor because of luck, but because of my parents. Under the moonlight, Connie's eyes were as clear as emeralds, shimmering as if lost in memories. But when she mentioned her parents, she suddenly choked up and changed the subject. Every race, in every cycle, is only allowed a fixed number of people to send into the wasteland. But the races can accumulate that quota over multiple cycles. Our lion race once saved up for 189 cycles to unleash 20,000 people all at once. Later, we even added another 150,000. Yet, for some unknown reason, those 170,000 lions all died. That shock cost us our entire core force. The ancestral god was severely injured, and even our world was heavily devastated. Of course, the other races didn't fare much better. Only the 5 great royal clans invested the least in that battle. The ice-cold beer slid down her throat. Connie spoke as if pouring her heart out. I didn't interrupt, just listened quietly. When I finally got the chance, I asked, so why did the 5 great royal clans invest the least? Did they know something beforehand? No one knows. The order to go all out came down from the ancestral god. To this day, we still don't know what exactly happened. And my parents, they died in that battle too. Connie stopped talking. She just looked up at the deep night sky, 2 tears silently falling. No one knew if it was for her family or from the feeling of being abandoned by her own race. For the alien races, this world had no emotion, no morality, no racial glory. There was only one thing: interests. If you had value, you were invested in. If you had no value, you were discarded. Is there no other way to increase your strength? I probed. If Connie's words were true, then gaining strength wasn't like playing a game. It wasn't just about grinding mobs and doing quests to level up. It was a pitch for funding. You had to show potential. You had to create value. If the investment had been cut off, there's one more way, and it lies with you. Oh, wait. No, it lies with Oreo. Oreo? What does getting stronger have to do with Oreo? Having just heard a bunch of earth-shattering secrets, now Connie was dragging the conversation back to my pet? I scratched my head, looking bewildered. Oreo hatched from an egg in the nest of the abyssal dragon. Sure, she looked mystical, but she had never shown any ability to affect the strength of alien races before. Except for one thing. She had absorbed the godhood of a false god. Wait a minute. Godhood. Looking at Connie's meaningful smirk and recalling the changes in Oreo's attribute panel after absorbing the godhood, my mind instantly started racing. Holy crap. This girl was no pushover either. From the push and pull earlier to the pitiful expressions, the weak and obedient act, her acting was top tier. If I hadn't played so many mind games with Zhong Qingshu before, with my previously easygoing nature, I definitely would have been played like a fiddle. After thinking for a few seconds, I decided to ask straight up. No way. Are you really planning to betray your race? Have you thought this through? What if you regret it later? No, this isn't called betraying my race. Ever since my race abandoned me, my name was erased. More accurately, I don't belong to any race right now. Seeing that I guessed right, Connie nodded frankly. The lion race can't afford any more losses. We can't let any alien race hold a grudge against us. Otherwise, the next generation's path will be blocked. So even if I join you now, they won't say a word, because I've been completely cut off. Funny, isn't it? The very rule they made after that massive defeat to minimize losses became the reason I was thrown away. Since a dozen days ago, when I completely lost contact with my race, I've had full control over all my remaining accumulated points. I used them to exchange for a human language learning chip, then taught it to those idiots, the ones who still don't know they've been abandoned. As long as I have a new race, all the points I earn from now on can be poured entirely into myself in exchange for strength. I won't need to share them with the clan anymore. She laid out her entire current situation without hiding a thing. This time, it wasn't a fake surrender either. No backing, no reinforcements. Connie had truly placed her entire fate in my hands. Wait a minute. How do you guys calculate points that can be used to increase strength? I flipped the grilled meat while taking the chance to ask more, having regained the initiative. 2 ways. One is like you guys, surviving disasters earns points. The second is participating in clan wars. Depending on the scale, ratio, and outcome, points are rewarded. But normally, these points can't directly increase strength. However, if right now, you let me join Oreo's race, appoint me as a divine envoy, and elevate my status, then I can use points to close the power gap. Connie's eyes lit up when she said the words, divine envoy. Now, there was no trace of a tipsy girl left. All that remained was an intense thirst for power, and above all, ambition, something most ordinary aliens didn't have. Even strong ones like the black-robed kobold, no matter how powerful, always knelt before false gods, living and dying for their race. But Connie was different. In every word she spoke, I didn't feel a shred of loyalty to the lion god. On the contrary, she even seemed a bit secretly glad to have escaped the lion race. So what can you bring me? I sprinkled a little more cumin onto the meat skewers, watching the flames flare up from the heat, my voice calm and devoid of emotion. Previously, Oreo's 4th skill after absorbing the godhood, ability 4, Oreo, race, false god, has the right to create her own race. I had treated it as a useless ability, just sitting there for fun. Thinking about it now, not only was it useful, but to abandoned aliens like Connie, it was a deadly sweet nectar. If I could truly gather the losers of the Wasteland Wars, the ones thrown away by their own races, then what would I have to worry about for my future grand ambitions? Connie didn't hesitate at all. She answered immediately. I can persuade many other aliens to join Oreo's race. I can help you build an army entirely of aliens, absolutely loyal. I can grant increasingly powerful blessings. I can make Oreo's race the one and only royal clan. I can lead the aliens to find the artifact to become a god for you. I can combine the abilities of different alien races to create new combinations, new powers. Even when my power and status are high enough, in this entire wasteland, there will be no other voice. There will only be one person in power, and that's you, Sumo. As long as you want it. Connie's voice was full of excitement, even more blood-pumping than when I was hyping her up earlier. We were both painting grand visions, both testing each other. There was only one difference. I was starting to be moved. The power of the alien races was indeed too miraculous. From the kobold's fireball and the lion race's whirlwind to the fox's curse, and the terrifying strength of the minotaurs. Those bizarre abilities were the core strength of the alien system. If I could really recruit an alien army of my own, analyze those abilities, and then convert them into practical value, combining science and technology with fantasy, I could create a series of completely unique structures. While those structures couldn't solve natural disasters at their root, they could be sold to other survivor communities in exchange for resources and technology, creating a positive feedback loop and accelerating the main tech tree. And more importantly, they could save lives. Freezing weather? If I controlled the aliens, I could use fantasy-type abilities to develop energy towers like in Frostpunk, and people would no longer fear freezing to death. Scorching temperatures? Simulate the lightning storms from Red Alert to create artificial rain. Agriculture? Climate-controlled farms like in Stardew Valley. No birds, no lightning, no pests. Even better, if I could decode the true source of the aliens' power, I could build super energy batteries and completely solve the energy crisis. On the surface, I was still casually grilling meat, weighing the pros and cons of taking Connie in. But if you looked closely at the burnt skewers, you'd realize I was incredibly excited. Tell me, what's your real goal? My goal. Connie took the charred meat skewer from my hand, frowned, but still took a bite. 1 skewer, 2 skewers, 3 skewers. The taste was absolutely awful, dry, tough, and it stuck to her teeth. Yet she still ate almost the whole plate, chewing thoughtfully. Her expression shifted from anger and frustration, gradually settling into calmness. Finally, only a trace of deep-seated unwillingness remained. I only want one thing. To have enough power. To go find the lion god myself. I want to know why that great war back then really happened. I have to find out who manipulated everything, and why tens of thousands of people died so pointlessly. And if the lion god won't tell you, I'll kill him. Connie gritted her teeth, swallowing the last gulp of beer. Her eyes were bloodshot. I burst out laughing and stood up. Both parents dead, carrying the mission to uncover the truth on her shoulders. Talented, determined, and ambitious. Connie was exactly the type of character favored by destiny. If she were on Earth, she definitely would have been picked up from an orphanage to be the main protagonist. I'm extremely satisfied with the pitch you just made to join me. No time to waste. Since it's decided, let's get to work. With the deal struck, the barbecue had lost its meaning. The second test run would start tomorrow night. All preparations had to be finished today and tomorrow morning. Time was extremely tight. I put out the fire, handed the gear back to the militia, and led Connie straight toward the underground shelter. Previously, when I captured the core of Connie's shelter system, I only had 70% control. Now, with Connie determined to cut ties with the lion race and choosing to join Oreo's race, the control instantly spiked to 95%. Just a few more tricks, and I'd reach 100% submission. I didn't hide anything anymore. Along the way, I told her everything about the disaster coming in 6 days. Compared to what I told the people of Hope Village, this time I described it in much greater detail because Connie would be sailing with me. From the warning signs and the storm's characteristics to the level of destruction and how it would affect the terrain, I explained it all clearly. I didn't even hide the plan to use alien blessings to counter the disaster. Impossible. Connie shook her head decisively. With just my strength, I can't stop a disaster of that magnitude. Let alone me. Any alien at this current stage facing torrential rain pouring from thousands of meters high is dead for sure. Her reaction was exactly as I expected. But when we were just a few steps away from the shelter door, I flashed a confident smile. Connie, this is the first lesson I want to teach you today. Joining my shelter, you must remember one thing. Here, what we worship is science. Everything else is just a supporting tool for science. Have you ever heard this saying? The eye of the storm is the most peaceful place. Seeing Connie's confused expression, I just smiled and didn't explain further. I quickly entered the password, pulled the winch, and opened the door leading down to the shelter. The first floor was the garage. Only a few wall lamps flickered dimly by the stone door, making the vast space look as dark as a bottomless pit. Watching Connie act like a country bumpkin entering a grand mansion, looking here and there with full curiosity, I couldn't help but laugh. A bit of amusement welled up inside me. Since I built this shelter, aside from Oreo and the others, she was the first outsider to enter. I chuckled softly inside. I always thought that person would be a human. Who knew it would end up being her? Fate really has a sense of humor. Connie had already mastered human language. She even understood Huaxia idioms perfectly. I decided to show off a little on purpose. The breeze beside me gently picked up, then swirled stronger, turning into a small tornado that swept away all the dust in the garage. Connie's eyes widened. You can control the wind without using your own magic? How on earth did you get the blessing of a lion race priestess? Good heavens, you even set up an automatic wind circulation mode. Hey, what is going on here? Seeing Connie stunned with amazement, I smiled smugly. I pushed the stone door, opening the way down to the second floor. Over the past few days, to prepare for the disaster, the weapon development line in the shelter had to be paused, and the construction speed had stalled for over 10 days. Even so, as we walked through the deep stone corridor leading to the second floor, Connie kept marveling nonstop. Oreo, Muer, come greet our guest. Seeing the lights in the pen area still on and the food basket completely untouched, I scratched my head, a bit dumbfounded. Seriously, an underground shelter? More like a shelter for bookworms at this point. Honestly, setting sail or radiating my own light and passion was just secondary. The four little ones in the shelter were so obsessed with studying, it was almost scary. Luckily, after I turned on the central lights, Oreo caught a familiar scent, and the happy study hour finally came to an end. Seeing Connie sticking close behind me, all four of them rushed out at once. 2 chickens, 1 bear, 1 dog, and 1 lion. Animals really do have their own way of communicating. With just a few exchanged glances, the atmosphere among the little ones visibly heated up. I just waved my hand and headed down to the 3rd floor, leaving the stage to Connie. If the clan integration succeeded, she would enter the shelter in a completely new way. And right now, it was time to show off and acknowledge the boss. Based on seniority, Oreo was still the boss. Muer had been training harder lately, so he climbed up to the second-in-command seat. The 2 Hua babies weren't bad, but they were still the first wild beasts to join the shelter, temporarily holding the 3rd and 4th spots. Connie was the newbie. Later on, if more members joined, her status might rise. As for the melon, the chaotic clucking and barking behind me made me chuckle. I pulled a cold bottle of Coke from my spatial inventory, taking a sip as I sat down at my desk. As for that Eye of the Storm thing I used to scare Connie earlier, I was mostly just talking big to sound cool. Using a lion race priestess-level blessing to fight off a terrifying disaster? Keep dreaming. Theories and technology are meaningless if you aren't strong enough yourself. Even if the lion race evolved further, they could never withstand a waterfall dropping from thousands of meters high. That's right. From the very beginning, what I wanted wasn't for the hope to survive the disaster completely intact, but rather, rebirth. In the first test, the system recorded that as long as water touched the bottom of the hope, the recovery process would start accumulating. So, if I created a giant bathtub for the hope to soak in beforehand, as long as I accumulated enough of the 30% recovery index when the disaster hit, meaning as long as I kept the damage below that threshold, the ship would survive the disaster in a completely different way. Sitting at my desk, taking a sip of fizzy Coke, I was no longer worried about setting sail for the Grand Canyon. When there's an information asymmetry, I can even ride roughshod over natural disasters to some extent. But when it came to the specific design, I was still dead serious. Initially, I only planned to impress a few alien races snooping around the basin, grabbing the third relief chest while putting them in their place. But ever since Connie joined, my thoughts gradually changed while drafting the plan. Those 20,000 aliens. I wanted to keep them. Keep all of them. Not for the loot, not to boost Connie's strength and piggyback off it, but for reputation. To recruit more aliens, I needed a name. Whether it was a righteous reputation or a ruthless one, it didn't matter. Midnight. So sleepy. I slid my chair from the desk to the bed and flopped down. In just a few minutes, my exhausted brain dragged me into a deep sleep. This habit had formed nicely over the past 10+ days in the shelter. Even if Chun-Shin and his team stayed up all night outside, I still slept like a log. I didn't open my eyes until 7:50 a.m., just in time to clear my head and catch the system report at 8 o'clock. I lay there staring at the ceiling until 7:59. At the very last second, I sprang up and opened the system panel. Yesterday, the Hope had just reached the sub-legendary tier, a monumental milestone. I still had over 28,000 points. As long as I got over 10,000 more today, I'd have a full 50,000 before setting sail. The ticking of the large clock in the gym felt like a drum beating against my heart. In the last 2 seconds, I took a deep breath and focused on the screen. At exactly 8 o'clock, the system notification lit up in bright yellow, appearing right on schedule. I immediately opened the envelope. Doomsday Calendar, February 17th. You participated in the inauguration ceremony of an affiliated village for the first time. Plus 100. You discovered the movements of an alien army near the base. Plus 200. The villagers have hope for the future. They believe that following you will bring happiness. Plus 1,000. The first large vehicle you crafted has been completed. Plus 2,000. You obtained detailed information about the disaster and formulated a countermeasure plan. Plus 500. You subjugated the first alien to submit to you, the lioness Connie. Plus 500. The system is scanning the survival environment. Today you receive an additional 832. Summary. Plus 5,132 survival points. Total remaining points. 33,362. Congratulations, host Sumo. You have completed your first sub-legendary tier vehicle. Your abilities have passed the level 1 authority test. Reward unlocked. You have the right to choose your reward. Note, this choice is not fixed. For the next 96 hours, I can change it as many times as I want. 3 rewards lay before me. 1. Instantly receive 50,000 survival points. 2. 1 crafting gacha pull. 3. 1 gacha pull for an artifact related to the sub-legendary vehicle, Hope. You can spend 1,000 points to re-roll, with unlimited attempts. I stared wide-eyed at the interface. Level 1 authority, huh? A straight-up 50,000 point reward. Today's report was completely different from the usual. No traps, no tricks. After the shock of losing 1,000,000 disaster points last time, my first instinct upon seeing 50,000 points was to lock it in immediately. But, as my eyes slid down, wait a minute, crafting gacha? And there's an option to re-roll as many times as I want. Even though I knew crafting a sub-legendary vehicle would yield a massive reward, these 3 choices still made me freeze for a few seconds. Holy crap, the crafting gacha means I could pull top-tier gear, right? What if I pull a Dongfeng missile? Then neither the aliens nor the gods behind them would dare make a peep. Or some other overpowered items. The base wouldn't have to worry about lacking anything. The allure of this choice was so strong that even I, someone who rarely gambled, was wavering. If 50,000 survival points was the safe, stable choice that guaranteed steady progress, then the gacha ticket was the reckless choice. Hit the jackpot and you feast. Miss, and well, nobody dies. But this third choice, it was the middle ground. I tried focusing my thoughts on the third option. A description popped up. Even without selecting it, I could preview the possible drops, and I even got 1 free trial pull, used to Earth-style rewards, which were really just bait to get people to spend money. Facing this kind of genuine reward got me incredibly hyped. I hit the transition button. Dong! A heavy, deep sound echoed through the space. There was no blinding flash like when I used the heaven-stealing talisman. Instead, it shifted into a sleek, high-tech interface. The bedroom vanished, replaced by the familiar artifact gacha space. But this time, amidst the sky full of swirling cards, what caught my eye was the Hope, a miniature model of the ship, radiating a golden red light, pulsing like it was breathing. With every sweep of light, the cards that caught a glimmer of it were kept. The rest were discarded. Just a few seconds later, only the colored cards remained before my eyes. Let's see if these rewards related to the Hope are any good. I randomly pulled a card and flipped it over casually. This design is pretty normal. Just a wooden sailboat. I acted like, wait a minute. The description below almost made me drop the card. The Flying Dutchman. Anyone who's seen Pirates of the Caribbean would definitely understand. That ship might look flimsy, but it can dive underwater and even control the dead. Super overpowered. If I just imprint this card onto the Hope, the ship could operate at a depth of 100 meters. The inside wouldn't be affected at all, just like walking on land. Absolutely peak. Completely caught off guard, I let go. The card fell back into the vortex and disappeared. Unwilling to give up, I pulled another one. Moby Dick. The name sounded familiar. Enlargement ability. I kept reading. 10 times the size. What the hell? 800 meters? My ship would turn into a sea monster. The card's origin was from a famous pirate anime. I silently dropped it back. This time, I pulled 4 or 5 cards in a row, ignoring the pictures and just reading the descriptions. Horror cruise ship, time reversal. Every 3 days, supplies revert to their state from a day prior. Noah's Ark, unsinkable. Even if smashed to pieces, it still floats. Black Pearl, shrinkable. Put it in a bottle and carry it anywhere. Japanese battleship Yamato mounts a 460mm main gun directly onto the Hope. Luxury cruise ship upgrades the entire interior. A complete overhaul. Combat, mobility, and luxury living all included. To make sure this wasn't just bait, I pulled dozens more cards. The more I looked, the calmer I got, but also the more curious. So this is what related artifact meant. I could pull countless types of ships, then extract their special abilities to attach to the Hope. The better the ship, the stronger the effect. And it only cost 1,000 points to re-rolling until I was satisfied. After looking at the last card, which featured a handmade paper boat, I exited the gacha interface. I stood up, washed my face, and then received the breakfast brought by the Hope Village chef. Sitting at the table, I ate while lost in thought. I was so spaced out that even the 4 little ones and Connie knew something was up. Thanks to Oreo's signaling, no one dared to bother me. For over 10 minutes, the room was filled only with the sound of chewing and Moo Air's soft snoring. After eating, I handed the cleanup duty to Connie, the newbie. I returned to my desk with my usual calm demeanor, grabbed a new notebook, flipped to the first page, and started analyzing the pros and cons of the 3 choices. First, the artifact gacha. I'll skip the gambling aspect. For me right now, 50,000 survival points are too precious. If I whiff the pulls, I basically lose a massive opportunity to power up. So that leaves 2 choices, 50,000 survival points, or the gacha for the Hope. Eliminating the gambling route, my mind cleared up. Now I just had to calculate how much 50,000 points would actually strengthen me. If I used 50,000 points for direct upgrades, I could push the autopilot system to a complete level and replace the entire fire control radar, bringing it up to the standard of the era before I crossed over. I could even restructure the ship's hull, welding every seam shut to create a seamless cast design, massively boosting its defense. And if I used the points to unlock technology, I could fast-track weapons up to the level of small machine guns, or unlock light artillery. Roughly calculating, 50,000 points could increase overall strength by about 30%. If the gacha pulls couldn't hit that mark, then taking the points was clearly the better deal. About to set sail, the things that could boost my power revolved entirely around weapons and ship attachments. The free gacha pull wasn't exactly a mouth-watering offer. It was more like a Pandora's box full of temptation. Anyone would think, maybe just one more pull, and I'll hit the jackpot. Even I wasn't immune. If I lost my cool for even a second, not only would I get nothing, but I could also blow all my survival points. But there are always exceptions. No rush. I'll wait until after the second test run tonight. It won't be too late to come back and pull tomorrow. If the Grand Canyon map opens up and the aliens have some trick beyond my ability to handle, I'll take the gamble and pull. But if I can still manage, I'll give it exactly 5 pulls. If I don't get anything that boosts my power by more than 30%, I'll stop right there. I stood up, gathered the notebook full of formulas, stored it in my inventory, and walked outside. Morning in the basin. With only 5 days left before the disaster, the atmosphere was already as taut as a bowstring. Last night, after calculating the required area and depth to dig, I handed it all over to Chun Shun before going to bed. This morning, the excavator operators in Hope Village had already gotten straight to work. Looking at the massive pit at the stern of the Hope, I nodded in satisfaction. In the apocalypse, having people do the work for you is always better than micromanaging every little thing yourself. Until I fully mastered energy technology and automated robots, manpower was still the greatest strength. That was also why I didn't choose to dump 50,000 points into rushing the tech tree. For this voyage, aside from collecting a few defeated aliens as guinea pigs, my goal was also to recruit talent. Using points to push technology only made sense when I was researching unknown fields. But dumping points into a weapon tree that was already perfected back on Earth? That would be a waste of a godsend. So hoarding points was still the smartest strategy. Standing on the plateau, I directed the villagers digging the dirt for a while, then headed back toward the bow of the ship. There, the new divine envoy, Connie, belonging to Oreo's clan, was performing her first blessing. Exiled by the lion race, Connie joining a clan with a false god in name only like Oreo's didn't draw any attention. Oreo didn't have any real divine power to begin with, and Connie was weak, so weak that no one even batted an eye at her. Even though she was second only to one person in the priest system, without disaster points to upgrade, Connie today was exactly the same as last night. I watched for a bit and realized the blessing ceremony was just dancing and singing around the ship. I couldn't learn anything from it, so I shook my head and left. Walking along the path up Iron Rock Mountain, I stopped by the area where the village was building the energy absorption structure. The small hut on the concrete foundation had been torn down. On the mountainside, the villagers had started the second phase of renovations. The leftover steel plates from building the ship, authorized by Chun Shun, were brought over to reinforce the weak spots on the cliff face. The drainage issue, which had previously been overlooked, was now thoroughly resolved. In one night, they built 3 large pipes flowing down to the foot of the mountain. The villagers split into teams working under the captain's orders, constructing at a pace so fast it was dizzying just to watch. No one would have expected that in just half a month, this makeshift mountain of dirt and rocks would turn into a massive project. Even though I was constantly being stared at, I wasn't annoyed. On the contrary, I loved the feeling of everything gradually changing. From the underground shelter to the growing hope, and then Iron Rock Mountain turning into a solid fortress. This basin had truly come alive, completely different from the deathly stillness before the disaster. A sudden thought flashed through my mind. I am no longer fighting alone. Reaching the end of the cement road, I saw a group of over 10 people discussing in the main meeting room. They were all top students who had once taken refuge in the base. Even though their high-tech knowledge was still hazy, thanks to their scientific spirit and the Three Stooges are better than one mastermind mindset, their work was starting to take shape. Seeing a few completed models on the table, I didn't go in to disturb them, but instead walked around and down the mountain. Going by experience, this was my first time truly being a leader. But thanks to learning from my dad, who had hustled in the business world for decades, I was managing better than I thought. Even so, this kind of management can't be taught. It's life experience. For this second test run, I hope there's clear progress. At the very least, give me a glimmer of hope to catch some aliens. I returned to the Hope, connected the power, and continued fixing the remaining bugs. The errors exposed in the first test run took me half a day to tweak, but since I had found the core issue, the second round of fixes took less than 20 minutes. Neat and clean. Done in one go. For the rest of the half day, before heading down to check the excavation route, I spent all my time optimizing the Gong system. The current logic was too mechanical. When multiple requests conflicted, the system overloaded, causing the ship to lag. Aside from taking over the entire ship, it didn't yet support a semi-automatic mode. These bugs had to be fixed immediately. Luckily, the core was done, so adding new functions wasn't too hard. Coincidentally, just as Connie finished her blessing ceremony, I had also just finished drawing up the blueprint for the semi-automatic mode. I stepped out of the cockpit. The sun was already sinking behind the mountain peak. Darkness fell. I helped Connie, who was so exhausted she was about to pass out, back to her resting quarters. I grabbed a still warm bowl of rice and ate as fast as I could. Like every day, 3 slices of beef, 2 steamed buns, and a plate of pickled veggies. Swallowing the last piece of meat, I downed the glass of hard liquor Chin Shun had gifted me the other day. The alcohol spread through my veins, and my spirits gradually lifted. That night, I didn't choose to rest. I stepped out of the base doors. A long, burning night, a battle with only myself, amidst the cold wind and desolation, began once again. If you want to stand above others, you have to suffer behind their backs. I chugged an entire bottle of 52-proof Malanchon Erguo, a full 265 milliliters of hard liquor. From a stumbling state, I forced myself to walk steady, forcing myself to sober up. This was one of the few benefits I gained after countless times drinking energy water and being healed by the classic of mountains and seas scroll. I could manually speed up my circulation, accelerating the metabolism of alcohol in my body. If I were still on Earth, I probably would have become a god of drinking who never gets drunk. But in this desolate wasteland, I understood very well. While drunk, I could escape the pain of tonight's battle. But when I sobered up, the feeling of torn flesh and half my body paralyzed might return. In the distance, the excavator operator was still working hard in the dead of night. Seeing me approach, he hurried over to greet me. "Director, the task you gave us last night to dig the pit and build that bathtub? We're done with it now. The dirt walls have also been reinforced with leftover materials from the village. The bathtub frame is fully set up. We're just waiting for the village to bring the water to fill it. Probably about an hour more." Knowing I was here to prepare for the second test run, even though the villagers knew my temper, the workers were still anxious about delaying the schedule. I just shook my head. No need to rush. I clearly set the deadline for before 9 p.m. It's only a little past 7 now. From now on, just stick to the schedule. Don't be afraid of me. Go back to work. Waving my hand to dismiss the formalities, I boarded the ship via the wooden stairs. Tonight, before the second test run, there was still a lot to do. Aside from activating the new durability index and the blessing from Connie, the lion race priestess, I also had to restructure and reinforce everything. Connie's wind magic was definitely smarter than before, but its power was only enough to sweep dust and ventilate. Even the gale spell she cast only slightly boosted running speed. Using that breeze to fight against a waterfall dropping from thousands of meters high was truly like throwing an egg against a rock. Luckily, the system had finished scanning all of the Hope's attributes. A familiar interface popped up. Supernatural attribute, Gale. Level 1. Growth potential, 2.5 stars. Origin. The skill originally had a 2-star potential. Thanks to Connie, the priestess of Oreo's clan, it gained an extra half-star. Within a certain range on the Hope, the power of the blessing is under my control. As for the specifics, I'd have to figure that out myself. Upgrade Path 1. Level up the blessing from level 1 to level 2. Increases power and range. Small chance to generate a second ability. Cost: 1,180 survival points. Upgrade Path 2. Primal Reversion Blessing. Promotes Connie to High Priestess of the Lion Race. Guarantees the generation of a second ability. Small chance to increase overall potential and generate a third ability. Cost: 3,800 survival points. Upgrade Path 3. Status Elevation. Promotes Connie from Lion Race Priestess to the main priestess of Oreo's clan. Very high chance to upgrade the attribute and blessing potential. 100% chance for the blessing to mutate on the first upgrade. Can be merged with the shelter's blessing attribute. Cost: 6,850 survival points. Evaluation. Artifact to become a god. Hand it over now. I froze when I saw the third option. I had never seen such a bizarre status elevating upgrade before. But thinking about it, it made sense. Connie was no longer just a lion race priestess. She now bore the title of the Orthodox priestess of Oreo's clan. She was the person closest to the god. Even if it was just in name, It was like using the emperor's name to command the nobles. The weight it carried was still massive. Upgrading this way could even merge it with the base's skills. Could it merge with the mermaid's skills? Just thinking about the mermaid's 3 blessing skills underground got me hyped. If the Hope inherited the water parting ability, then even if it was engulfed by seawater, the ship would automatically create a barrier. And for sailing? Absolute peak. Having Connie join Oreo's clan before performing the blessing ceremony was definitely the right move. I didn't expect joining this clan, which existed in name only, to have such huge hidden benefits. I ran my hand over the rough weld marks on the ship's railing, then without hesitation, chose the 3rd upgrade path. I had once burned over 20,000 points just to upgrade the training ground, so nearly 7,000 points this time was nothing. After spending it, I'd still have over 26,000 points left. Plenty of breathing room. Just give me water repulsion or affinity. Please don't give me breathing, because out of the mermaid's 3 skills, breathing is only useful for people diving underwater. For a warship? Completely useless. As long as the system integrated water repulsion or affinity, either one would be a massive profit. It seemed my prayers reached the system's ears. Out of thin air, a blue light flew out, connecting the Hope to the underground shelter. In a vision only I could see, the base's turtle shell emerged and slowly flew toward the ship. The mermaid's water portion, covering 60% of the turtle shell, radiated a soft blue light, falling onto the ship's hull like a gentle mist. The small breeze Connie had blessed, which had been hiding in the cockpit, curiously peeked out and bathed in that light. Right before my eyes, the green whirlwind that was originally the size of a bottle cap was now as big as a fist, its green hue tinted with a soft blue. I could clearly feel it. The wind-controlling energy was 10 times stronger than the original wind magic. The Hope emitted a faint blue-green light, like a creature shedding its skin. This feeling, it was transcending its limits. From a purely technological warship, it was now fused with mystical abilities. The flag at the bow glowed bright golden red, blazing with momentum. The blue light gradually receded. Upgrade complete. I immediately focused my mind and called up the new attribute panel. Supernatural attribute, Sea Breeze. Level 3. Growth potential, 4 stars. Origin. According to ancient legends, the wind god and the sea god ruled their respective domains, minding their own business. But the wind god's wind lost control when it went out to sea, and the sea god's water couldn't be directed when it rose into the sky. As time passed, the ocean surface became a zone of chaos, causing countless great floods that destroyed all living things. Under the witness of the chief god, the 2 gods were forced to make a pact, crowning a new god, the Sea Breeze god, solely in charge of the wind and water on the ocean surface. Skill 1. When I stand on the Hope, I can control water at a minor level, only effective on the ocean surface. Underwater or on land, effectiveness is minus 100%. Skill 2. When I stand on the ship, I can control wind at a moderate level, also only usable on the ocean surface. Outside that range, effectiveness is minus 100%. Skill 3. Affinity. The ship carries the aura of a mermaid, gaining natural goodwill from marine creatures. Evaluation. Answer me. Did the Sea Breeze god appear to counter the sea god, or to weaken the wind god? A question? The system wasn't using its mechanical language this time. It actually asked in plain words, and very easy to understand at that. I crossed my arms and stood still, thinking. Ignoring the fact that the skills were terrain-locked, the most important thing was my upcoming target out at sea, the sea god. The system cleverly dropped a breadcrumb of info right before 0 hour, making a humanities major like me instantly sniff out something fishy. The ocean covers nearly 80% of the surface. At first glance, it seems like the wind god losing authority over the sea is a huge loss. But in reality, the wind had long lost its effectiveness out at sea anyway, so giving it up wasn't much of a loss. But the sea god was different. Whether the water was in the sea or up in the sky, it was still his. Now, a sea breeze god suddenly appears to cut into his power. This was clearly getting played. The more I thought about it, the more I realized the sea breeze god was the real big winner, just sitting in a middleman position and controlling the entire ocean surface. Too overpowered. Wait a minute. Who is the chief god? In this apocalyptic wasteland, any god is a ticking time bomb that could multiply a disaster by 500,000 times. I wrote everything down in my notebook. Looking at the list of divine seats, which now included both the wind god and the chief god, my head started buzzing. On this voyage, if I could meet the sea god, maybe everything would become clear. But for now, I needed to focus on the second test run. The upgrade took quite a bit of time, and the progress bar on the Hope had already lit up. I reeled in my thoughts and headed back to the cockpit. No matter how tangled the relationship between the sea god and the wind god was, what mattered more was that the Hope could now control the sea breeze. Just how formidable that power was, I'd only know once I entered the talisman world. Bringing along the newly transformed system, the mysterious talisman flew out again. A single thought was enough to open the gate of light. I double-checked the classic of mountains and seas scroll and the bottle of energy water, confirming my body was in peak condition. I stepped in. My entire body merged with the light, vanishing from the Hope's cockpit. The heaven-stealing talisman was always bizarre. Even though my soul left my body, when I stepped through the gate, my physical body also disappeared from reality. With a strict ban in place, no one dared to board the ship. In the silent cockpit, minutes ticked by. When the time hit the 32-minute mark, the gate of light opened again. With a face full of bewilderment, I slumped into the captain's chair. In real time, it had only been over half an hour, but in the talisman world, I had lived for more than 3 hours. The second test run was a success. Whether it was launching into the sea or entering the Grand Canyon, there were no issues. But I also realized that this test, in a way, was a failure. I got careless. This time I got ambushed and couldn't even pop a dodge skill. I was just trying to save the fiercely burning Hope when, right after, a massive explosion erupted from the engine room, blasting me straight into the sea. Luckily, having already had my body snapped in half during the first run, this time, even with my entire lower half blown off, I still managed to chant the exit command before passing out. After that, nothing. I woke up sitting in the cockpit, completely intact as if nothing had happened. Thank God. The heaven-stealing talisman still had 4 hours of energy left, enough for one last run. Sobering up and refusing to recall the feeling of losing half my body just now, I grabbed the floating talisman, inspected it closely, and finally breathed a sigh of relief. In the first test, the Hope was battered by the disaster and crashed into the sea without getting far. I had completely overlooked the possibility that the error came from the ship itself. In the upgraded second test, with the sea breeze blessing and rebirth, the Hope ran smoothly. Gong Gong handled everything with stable, seamless precision. Like a snake gliding through shallow water or a phoenix soaring low in the sky, the silky smooth launch into the sea got me genuinely hyped. Even knowing this was just the talisman world and dying didn't mean real death, I still maintained high alert, racking my brain to monitor every parameter. And everything was perfect. From operation to navigation, the Hope felt like an extension of my own limbs, smooth, precise, and clean. It was exactly because it was so stable that I didn't notice the trouble brewing below the main deck, and just kept charging straight toward the Grand Canyon. From the basin to the canyon was 120 kilometers. At normal speed, it would take over 2 hours. At full throttle, about an hour and 20 minutes. To save the talisman's energy for the final test, I went full speed, holding steady at 45 knots, over 82 km per hour. After running for an hour, the map indicated I was almost there. Before I could even celebrate, a massive explosion went off. Game over. Truly, made by the engine, destroyed by the engine. I sat there, recalling the sight of fire gutting the entire ship, shaking my head nonstop. I opened the secret door leading down to the engine room. As the heavy steel door swung open, I climbed down. In the real world, the engine room was still quiet. The matter conversion engine was in standby mode, its lights pulsing like a heartbeat, casting a glow over the dim space. I felt my way along the wall to the switch and pressed it. The lights flicked on. I stared straight at the newly illuminated engine system. Under the lights, every detail appeared clearly before my eyes. If it weren't for my genius design, this bug might have just laid dormant, waiting for the perfect moment to send me straight to the afterlife. Thank God I caught it this time. I touched the secondary screen. A quick scan immediately revealed the blind spot in the monitoring system. A critical error. Extremely critical. Heat. The engine had never run at full capacity before. The heat generated was always reabsorbed and recycled into energy. That's why, standing in the engine room, I never felt hot and inadvertently overlooked the cooling system. The matter engine had two ways to cool down: the energy recovery system and drawing energy to cool itself. When the heat exceeded the threshold, it automatically siphoned off output energy to power the internal cooling unit. Thanks to these two transcendent technologies that Earth was nowhere near achieving, the engine could run at full power in a sealed room for over an hour without blowing up. But no matter how good the cooling was, excess heat still needed somewhere to go. And since the engine room, with its 3-meter-thick steel walls that I designed myself, was completely sealed, that heat had nowhere to escape. Over time, the engine room gradually turned into a giant pressure cooker. Special steel is different from the ceramic in a pressure cooker. Its thermal conductivity coefficient reached 46.1. As the heat rose, no matter how thick the walls were, it transferred the heat throughout the entire ship. When other areas were ignited by the heat and the fire spread, I was still blindly trusting the engine's god-tier heat resistance, driving the ship at full throttle without knowing where the fire actually started. The ending, anyone could guess. After directing the fire extinguishing in the storage room, I still noticed the strange heat spreading. Just as I left the cockpit to go down and check, the pressure cooker hit its limit. Good thing this bug blew up during the test run. If it had exploded out on the real ocean, the Hope would have been completely screwed. My heart still pounding from nearly getting blown in half. I opened the coordination panel for the two cooling mechanisms, memorized the efficiency of each, and climbed the stairs back to the cockpit. In the original destroyer blueprint, there was clearly a cooling smokestack. But because I wanted to optimize space for the escape module, and since the matter conversion engine didn't burn fuel, I had completely skipped the cooling system. Now I know. Cutting the smokestack was digging my own grave. The consequences were brutal, but luckily it was still in the testing phase. This test run might have been a bit clunky against the torrential rain, but next time, I'll definitely make it perfect. As for the sea launch, no need to discuss it, smooth as butter. The only issue was cooling. Reinstalling a smokestack now would be pretty tough. Whatever, I'll just go Type 055 style and hide the cooling system inside the hull. Thinking about getting blown in half right at the edge of the Grand Canyon made my blood boil. Tonight, no matter what, I have to go back in one more time. At the very least, I need to see how those aliens ambush me. Otherwise, the whole plan goes down the drain. Don't tell me that in the Talisman world, without the system and without the game, I can't even drive my own ship? Bam! I slammed the cockpit door shut and hurried down the stairs, heading straight for the shelter. Without disturbing the 4 little ones studying or Connie sleeping, I walked down the second-floor corridor, took a turn, and slipped into the warehouse. Trading. I need to make a massive trade. Whether it's fire trucks on Earth or thermal insulation for the Hope, it all costs money. No equipment, no supplies. What? Am I supposed to go back to the old days of carrying buckets of water to put out fires? Even though I was in a rush, I stayed sharp and compared prices for each type. Right now, since fire extinguishers couldn't be broken down, trading them required paying extra disaster points for shipping. And right before migration day, disaster points were as precious as gold. As a result, the price of fire extinguishers was absurdly cheap. Except for the early days of crossing over when people used them as weapons, fire extinguishers were now obsolete. They only had one function left, putting out fires. Having determined the floor price, I immediately made my move, buying them up in bulk. Dry powder, CO2. As long as the price was reasonable, I swept them all up. One shopping spree burned through 60 disaster points, but 27 extinguishers appeared in the warehouse. After sorting out the fire extinguishers, I moved on to thermal insulation blankets, a crucial material for preventing fire spread. Highly flammable areas like the storage room and dorms had to be thickly covered for peace of mind. On top of that, this item didn't require shipping fees, so I bought them until the warehouse had no room left to store them. I drove the Earth Tiger, loaded with materials, out to the ship. By the time the batch was loaded onto the Hope, it was already 9:30 p.m. wasteland time. No need to manually cut steel and weld every single plate. I scanned the ship's attributes and activated the upgrade system. Costing 1,800 survival points and the materials I just gathered, the Hope instantly underwent a complete transformation. Fireproof layers automatically attached to critical areas. A camouflage exhaust extended from the engine room, completely hiding the cooling system. Fire extinguishers appeared evenly across the walls. The steel structure was optimized, noticeably sturdier than before. Perfect. If I had handed this pile of work to the mechanics team, it would have taken 4 or 5 days. The system is truly overpowered. Every single point spent was worth it. I let out a heavy breath. Looking at the comprehensively upgraded ship, I didn't rush into the test this time. I closed my eyes, leaned back in the captain's chair, and calmed my mind. Every maneuver from the previous 2 test runs played out like a slow-motion movie. How to counter the disaster, how to launch into the sea, navigating the open ocean, which mistakes led to damage, which moments nearly tore the ship apart. Everything appeared clearly down to the last detail. The cockpit was airtight. Thanks to the waterproof design, it was absolutely silent outside. 10 minutes passed, then 30 minutes. I still didn't move a muscle. At exactly 11 p.m., my eyes snapped open. My whole body was like a sword just drawn from its sheath, springing up with razor-sharp intensity. The talisman drifted to the side, dodging the shockwave. The gate of light appeared once again. I clenched my fists tightly. This time, the aliens absolutely won't escape. I took a step forward, and the 2 worlds instantly inverted. With the experience of the previous 2 runs, the moment the light swallowed my body, I immediately hyper-focused, calling up the system while staring intently at the figure hidden in the darkness ahead. The first time I entered that space, I could only vaguely make out a humanoid figure sitting in the dark. He wasn't tall. Judging by his sitting posture, he was only about 1.7 meters. The second time, I came prepared. Looking closer, he was wearing rough clothes with sharp lines, styled like a trendy assassin. This outfit definitely wasn't from Earth. It screamed sci-fi alien. This time, as soon as I entered, I scrutinized him even more carefully. Under the system's faint light, I noticed a new detail. A watch. And seriously, who attaches a watch to their shoe? From a slanted angle, I clearly saw a vintage-style watch, exactly like a pocket watch, strapped to his ankle, swinging with every tap of his foot. I could only sigh. Damn, I don't even have a nice watch, and this guy wears one on his foot. Truly high society, completely out of my league as a mere mortal. It's just a pity the light was too dim. I couldn't scan the whole room to get a better look at that mysterious guy. I was trying to observe more when suddenly, my senses returned. Up until now, I could only hear the ocean waves and rely on the system's visual aid to see this world. But right then, a salty sea breeze brushed past my nose. The sound of the ocean, the scent of the deep sea. So my senses weren't lost after all, just forcibly detached from my body. The moment that thought flashed through my mind, the creature opposite me seemed to notice my presence. Before I could test any other senses, flash, a blinding light erupted. I opened my eyes. I was back in the cockpit of the Hope. The red moon still hung outside the window. What a shame, I muttered. If I had a few more tries, maybe I could have unlocked more senses. I sat back in my chair, burning the image of that watch into my memory. I wasn't as tense as before. This was the 3rd time. Surviving the disaster was already. I opened the hatch, went down to the engine room, and poured a liter of psychic energy water into the engine to reboot the system. Then I walked to the bow and dropped the main anchor to secure our position. Once done, looking at the sky red as if filled with burning rage, I calmly returned to the cockpit and began operating the Gong system. 12 minutes and 34 seconds left after preparations. The first time, I was clumsy. The second time, I had experience. By the 3rd time, I was a pro. Continuous live combat turned all my dream navigation knowledge into real skills. By Earth standards, I'd easily qualify as a first mate. I lightly tapped the left button on the control panel, ordering the mechanic to bring up 3 bottles of Moutai from the storeroom. Then I kicked my feet up on the console and opened the game interface. Chat, trade, and crafting. The disaster forecast remained unchanged after 3 attempts. On the vehicle tab, the pseudo-legendary Hope was clearly displayed. Under the rebirth skill, the 30% progress bar was ready to activate. 10 minutes and 22 seconds left. The mechanic brought up 3 bottles of manhwa and 2 bags of peanuts. I popped the cap. Gulp, gulp. In the real world, getting these 3 bottles of manhwa took the entire Hope Village's blood, sweat, and tears. Before the liquor production line was restored, drinking one meant one less forever. 2 gulps of liquor, a few roasted peanuts. 1 bottle down the hatch, and I was already buzzing, but my hands still reached to open the other 2. No one understands the agony of having half your body crushed. No one knows how horrifying it is to have your entire lower half blown to pieces. Was I scared? Hell yes. But my stubborn pride wouldn't let me say the words, I'm scared. So today, these 3 bottles of manhwa, precious as gold, were my liquid courage. After downing these, I'm pulling a Wu song beating the tiger. I'm going all out against those alien bastards. I stepped outside. The countdown was at exactly 3 minutes. Taking one last swig, I stumbled back into the cockpit and sealed the watertight door. On the console, the disaster warning was blaring. The fire control radar was running at max capacity, feeding back terrain data within a 1-kilometer radius. Looking at the map, the iron or mountain range had changed. I smiled, taking advantage of the time to observe. The talisman truly simulates real-time. Truly incredible. But compared to the second time, there were a few minor changes. The future isn't fixed. I watched intently until the clock hit 10 seconds. The wind in my heart died down, and my smile faded. 3, 2. Darkness descended. Immediately after, under my command, all 8 searchlights of the Hope flared to life. The deck lit up the pitch-black night. Gentle breezes picked up, then gradually grew stronger. Asterisk sizzle. Pitter-patter. Asterisk the familiar light rain began to fall. I stared at the ground monitoring screen without blinking. At 1 minute and 23 seconds, the first layer of water spread across the deck. My voice instantly turned stern, and the wind around the Hope erupted. If it was only 3 kilometers per hour at first, the moment the sea surface formed, the speed spiked to 15 kilometers per hour. A level 7 gale. The sea breeze blessing cloaked the Hope in a mystical aura. When my energy wasn't depleted, I had tested it. A level 7 gale sustained for 22 minutes and 40 seconds. Within a 100-meter radius around the ship, guided by my consciousness, the wind wasn't chaotic. It swirled clockwise around the hull. In just a few breaths, a high-pressure zone formed. The falling rain was sucked into it, then violently compressed against the ship like bullets. Rat-tat-tat. I didn't panic. My hands began to move. My left hand maintained the clockwise rotation, while my right hand guided a countercurrent. Controlling 2 wind currents at once wasn't just hand movements. Through these motions, I was activating my telekinetic wind control. Wind is soulless, but under my hands, it had a consciousness. Compared to the previous test, all the anomalies appeared earlier and much smoother this time. In just 4 breaths, the bullet-like rain began to ease. By the 10th breath, the rain stopped completely. If someone were sitting next to me in the cockpit right now, they'd be dumbfounded looking at the fire control radar. The display looked exactly like a TV weather map, a storm warning map. With the Hope at the center, the outer 50-meter ring was swept by a level 7 clockwise gale, creating a high-pressure zone that sucked all the moisture inward. Right next to the deck, within the inner 50 meters, the wind swirled counterclockwise, forming a low-pressure zone. 2 opposing vortices, combined with centrifugal force and the compression of hot air from above, created a perfect eye of the storm, the Hope's first layer of defense. But was that enough? No. Based on my previous experience, this storm layer could only hold out for about 14 minutes and 50 seconds. And the 20 seconds after that were the true life or death moment, deciding whether the Hope would survive or not. At exactly the 14-minute mark, when the 2 wind currents had become almost a reflex, I activated the 3rd and 4th defensive layers, the water cage wind. From 2 wind currents to 4 alternating energy sources, all thanks to the glowing telekinetic energy on my fingertips. No game, no system, just gear and willpower. Like a ring, I maintained the 2 wind vortices while simultaneously erecting water walls to shield the fire control radar. Each wall was only about 2 square meters, but it was just enough to protect the Hope's brain from the flood. On my second attempt, I managed to put up 12 walls before running out of energy. But this time, thanks to the alcohol stimulating my nerves, I managed to erect 15 walls before realizing I was overdoing it. But the clock already read 14 minutes and 52 seconds. No time to get distracted. Water started seeping through the storm shield, pouring down onto the deck. The emergency pump system, controlled by Gong, immediately kicked in, sucking the water out of the hold. Buoyancy surged, and the Hope began to sway. This was the signal marking the end of the 15-minute assault and the final war drum of the battle. 16, 17, 18 walls of water. Sweat dripped from my forehead onto the control panel. Human potential is limitless. In that life or death moment, I broke past my limits, erecting the 18 strongest water walls I'd ever made. Exactly at the 15-minute mark. The rain was no longer just rain. It was a waterfall crashing down from the heavens. Falling from thousands of meters high, the water roared as if trying to crush everything in its path. The storm zone I created was shattered in a second after completing its mission, then dissipated. The water crashed down like thunder, as if the entire sky had gone mad. In that single second, the Hope took more damage than in the previous 15 minutes combined. 15 minutes and 2 seconds, 17 walls left. 15 minutes and 5 seconds, 12 walls left. 15 minutes and 7 seconds, 5 walls left. 15 minutes and 9 seconds, only 3 walls remained. The waterfall finally exhausted its strength. The last 3 barriers held on until the very last second before dissolving like sea foam. Finally, only normal rain remained, pattering against the radar like a victory cheer. Looking at the game interface's report, durability loss, 24%. I shot up from the captain's chair, my face flushed red, laughing like a maniac. This is the sweet taste of survival. A flawless clear, hitting 2 birds with 1 stone. Absolutely beautiful. The first time, the radar was smashed to bits, the deck was riddled with holes, the cargo hold was flooded, and durability dropped to 30%. The second time, the radar was still heavily damaged, and the hull was torn to shreds. Even after using regeneration to patch it up, it only reached 84%. But this third time, the radar was intact, and the hull didn't have a single scratch. After regeneration, durability returned to an absolute 100%. No one but me knew that inside this cabin, I was grinning like a kid who just got a massive present, finally releasing the pressure I'd been shouldering for half a month. But all that effort, it was worth it. Regeneration skill activated. The cracks on the ice began to mend like a living organism. In less than a minute, the Hope was completely restored. Staring at that glowing green 100%, I couldn't take my eyes off it. The more I looked, the better it felt. So what if I got half my body crushed and my legs blown off? Trading that for this 100% was a damn good deal. If I can't make it to the Grand Canyon with 100% durability this time, I swear I'll quit being a captain. The alcohol in my system was completely sweated out after 15 minutes of battling the natural disaster. And as the Hope was reborn, I too stepped into the rebirth of my own career as a captain. System identity confirmed. Welcome back, Captain Su Mo Gong, activating full takeover mode. Initiating launch sequence. During the launch sequence, please do not interfere, Captain. Notifications popped up continuously, all glowing green to confirm optimal status. I chuckled with pride. I had modified the Gong system myself, so every command, every operation felt like an extension of my own hands. Cautious when necessary, reckless at just the right moments. That was my personality, and it was also the soul of Gong. The ship jolted slightly, then was forcefully pushed off the slipway, plunging into the sea. The system immediately reported, the Hope has successfully launched. Sea level, 5.36 meters. Draft, 3.63 meters. Ship posture, perfect. Autopilot is ready. Would the captain like to activate it? The ship was afloat. Thanks to the stabilizers, it didn't rock at all. As I unbuckled my seatbelt and stood up, I felt that smoothness even more clearly. Looking through the window, I could see the bow swaying slightly with the waves, but standing on the deck, I felt absolutely nothing. It was like standing in midair. Decline. Maintain current posture. I didn't turn on the autopilot. Experience told me there was no need to rush the departure on the final test run. I had to inspect the entire ship. Leading 4 worker robots, I went from the main deck to the living quarters, then all the way down to the cargo hold, floor by floor. Every room, Every nook and cranny where a malfunction could occur, I checked them all thoroughly, down to the last screw. The first page of the captain's log was also complete. February 17th, third test run. Recorded by Captain Su Mo. Watertight inspection, passed. Fire safety inspection, passed. Thermal control inspection, passed. Electrical inspection, passed. Everything was in perfect order. After confirming the engine room had no cooling issues, I returned to the armory. The last thing to check was the weapons. The remaining time on the heaven-stealing talisman was 3 hours. 3 hours was enough to reach the Grand Canyon and make it halfway through. But if I got dragged into a fight, I wouldn't be able to just log out whenever I wanted. This was the only battle, and I had to win. The ship currently had 4 upgraded Special Forces robots, each guarding a direction, plus 100,000 rounds of machine gun ammo. In the short term, I wasn't afraid of an ambush. But the foreign races were unpredictable. I couldn't neglect melee weapons either. If I ran into some monster with a decapitation skill, just sitting there watching wouldn't save my life. I put back on the armor set aside in the corner of the armory, then pulled out the spear hidden deep within the supplies. The clanking of my combat boots against the steel floor made my fighting spirit soar. I took firm, heavy steps back to the bridge. By now, Gong Gong had completely taken over the Hope. The fire control radar swept up all the data, constructing an ultra-detailed topographical map. Its scanning style was blunt and completely unapologetic. In modern warfare, this kind of blatant pinging would get you blown up instantly. But in this wasteland world, it was basically an auto-hack. The scan range reached 2 kilometers, and even the seabed was displayed with crystal clarity. From that data, Gong Gong also simulated the smoothest route with the least resistance. Doing one last check, everything was in perfect shape. I sat down in the captain's chair, took a deep breath, and exhaled slowly. Gong Gong, confirm autopilot authority. Activate assault navigation mode. Set to maximum speed. Destination, Grand Canyon. Unlike those half-baked AI systems people on Earth used to have, this authentic autopilot system reacted with terrifying speed. The moment I finished speaking, the interface popped up. Gong Gong has taken over. Destination confirmed. Initiating autopilot in 3, 2. The matter conversion engine responded almost instantly, but due to the hull's acceleration limits, the Hope sped up gradually. It was so smooth you could barely feel a thing. The 80-meter-long ship shot forward. It took a minute to reach its top speed of 45 knots, and once it did, the hull only swayed as gently as a passing breeze. Through the window, the scenery outside blurred past at breakneck speed. Half a minute later, the entire Taisher mountain range faded into the night behind us. Damn, 45 knots, and it's this smooth? This feels incredible. Driving the Earth Tiger across the wasteland, I only dared to maintain 60 kilometers per hour on a straight path. But now, steering a ship as massive as a dinosaur at 80 kilometers per hour, it felt so good I could cry. This was a luxurious experience that every military captain could only dream of. I kept my eyes on the control panel, in no rush to head outside. After 3 minutes of stable cruising, Gong Gong sent up a series of familiar notifications, exactly following the logic I had programmed. Autopilot mode successfully activated. Estimated time to destination, 1 hour and 19 minutes. Maintaining stable posture. Balance level, 92.39%. Captain, please wear the dedicated headset. The system will transmit real-time navigation data. Have a pleasant journey. A metal hatch popped open, revealing the high-end Bluetooth headset I had bought from the market. Its exquisite transmission properties meant it stayed crystal clear even through thick steel. I put it on my left ear, unbuckled my seatbelt, and stood up. This headset received navigation reports every minute and could even switch driving modes via voice command. Anyone who thought taking over the bridge meant controlling the Hope would get a rude awakening from this feature. I shouldered my spear, checked the talisman's remaining time, and left the cabin, sealing the watertight door behind me. Whether human or foreign race, with the system's warnings about the natural disaster, they could barely manage to survive. But ordinary mutated creatures? They had it much worse. Within a 200-kilometer radius outside the basin, the mutated creatures had completely vanished, wiped out by the foreign races. Looking at the sea surface littered with floating branches and mud mixing into the black water, It was easy to imagine the fate of the surviving creatures. If the rain didn't kill them, the flood drowned them. Honestly, humans were the same. If we didn't develop fast enough, we'd be buried here too. Sitting on the bow beneath the red and yellow flag, I calmly watched the sea recede behind us. In the thick of the night, the Hope was like a giant monster, tearing through the ocean to forge ahead. With its epic-grade steel, even if the ship rammed into an obstacle, it would only make a soft thud. 8 searchlights swept the area like the eyes of a beast, combined with the image analysis algorithm constantly feeding back data. The speed was so fast that time flew by. Before I could even fully enjoy the thrill of racing the ship, the headset announced, "The Grand Canyon is right ahead." Thanks to the new cooling system, the engine room was only at 72 degrees Celsius. No risk of fire or explosion. The entire ship maintained a stable posture, ready for combat at a moment's notice. The spot Vice Captain Pei Xiao had marked was already submerged, but the radar saw everything. When we were 1 kilometer away from the canyon entrance, I immediately stood up straight, stepping on the shaft of my spear, my hands gripping the mounted machine gun. My eyes locked forward. The foreign races could ambush us in 2 places, the canyon entrance or the second section, which was 72 kilometers long. The radar hadn't picked up anything at the entrance yet, but I remained on high alert. A long, deep blast from the ship's horn echoed out, challenging the abyss itself. No response. At my command, the Hope charged straight into the canyon. 5 kilometers. No enemies. 31 kilometers. Nothing unusual. 54 kilometers. Still dead quiet. 60, 65, 70 kilometers. As we were about to leave the second ambush zone, the radar was still completely clear. Not a single sign of life. Standing at the bow, I frowned. The foreign races might have fooled Pei Xiao, fooled my teammates, and even fooled my own eyes. But they couldn't fool the radar. There was absolutely no ambush in the entire deep canyon. Not only were they not trying to stop the Hope, but it felt like they were clearing the way for me to go faster. If their goal wasn't to stop me, then where the hell were those 20,000 foreign troops? A chill ran down my spine, giving me goosebumps all over my arms. I immediately ordered the ship to stop and sat back down on the bow, my mind spinning like a top. From the moment I heard about the 20,000 foreign troops, to receiving the scout team's report. Because of Connie the spy, combined with Zhong Qingshu's deductions, I had never even considered the possibility. What if they weren't at the Grand Canyon at all? What if their goal wasn't to stop me from setting sail, but to target something else? What was the most important thing to me? In a linear world, if A is eliminated, the answer can only be B. From boarding the ship, fighting the disaster, to heading out to sea, I reviewed every single clue, like watching a slow-motion replay. The basin, the Grand Canyon, Hope Village, the underground. I cursed out loud. Damn it. These foreign bastards had someone pulling the strings behind the scenes. Their target, from the very beginning, was never me. It was the shelter. The moment that thought flashed through my mind, my whole body shuddered, and I sprang up as if struck by lightning. All the information, all the doubts, all the loopholes, suddenly, everything made sense. They wanted to cut off my path of development, making it impossible for me to ever reconnect with the shelter. They had analyzed my actions and strength, predicting that I would choose to relocate the shelter rather than dismantle it and take it with me. So, all they had to do was wait for me to leave. 20,000 foreign troops were more than enough to level the shelter without shedding a single drop of blood. After using the linear timeline of the future to force a logical analysis of the foreign army's true objective, even as an opponent, I had to admit, whoever came up with this plan was a sick genius. An absolute checkmate. Airtight. There was no way this was thought up by those foreign races with double-digit IQs. The origin of this plan only had 2 possibilities: a traitor within the human faction, or 2, the highest echelons of humanity. I let out a cold laugh. To think that before I could even announce the impending natural disaster, those ambitious schemers had already set their sights on me. The tallest tree catches the most wind. I really put too much faith in their moral limits. I shook my head, staring at the desolate Grand Canyon before me, my eyes turning dark. I silently called out the exit command, and a flash of light pulled me back to the real world. Now that I understood the enemy's intentions, staying in the talisman's world was just a waste of time. If their target was the shelter's core, then they could easily wait another day or two, or even a few days after I had gone far away, before launching their ambush. In that scenario, even if I left an entire armory for Hope Village, they wouldn't stand a chance against 20,000 foreign troops as ravenous as a pack of starving wolves. The village would be leveled. The people would be slaughtered. The underground shelter would be destroyed, the core damaged, and my potential for development completely wiped out. And even if I saw through the plot early on, the mastermind behind this chessboard had nothing to fear. Because what they wanted was to force me into two choices. 1. Dismantle the entire shelter, take the core with me, and abandon all the hard work I'd built up. 2. Sit around waiting for a miracle, hoping some stray foreign race would wander by, so I could get teleportation rights. Unfortunately, the second choice would never happen, because the 5 royal clans had already controlled all the movement routes. Just with a baseless rumor about 20,000 foreign troops, you think you can force me to self-destruct my own base? I returned to the familiar wasteland world, putting away the heaven-stealing talisman. Stepping out of the bridge, I climbed straight up to the captain's roof, the highest point on the ship, second only to the radar. From here, I could see the entire basin under the moonlight. The distant iron or mountain range was still lit up with overnight construction lights. In this peaceful moment before the storm, the wasteland looked just like Earth, sparkling with vitality, making people momentarily forget their worries. I took out a bottle of psychic energy water, taking slow sips while replaying the entire logic of the plan in my head. The mastermind behind this had calculated everything, even the fact that I had a spy. And I was certain that the alien army used to threaten me hadn't even formed their ranks yet. They were probably still scattered among their tribes, 500 kilometers, 1,000 kilometers, maybe even 1,500 kilometers apart, moving in an arc to avoid detection. Before the disaster truly struck, they absolutely wouldn't dare approach the basin, terrified of my reputation as a god of death. Only on the final day, or a day or two prior, would they receive the order to assemble, surround the basin, and prepare to strike. With a decentralized communication system, even if 1 or 2 tribes betrayed them, it wouldn't affect a thing. To wipe them all out, unless I had the coordinates of every single alien and a missile system powerful enough to level the entire map, it was impossible. A terrifyingly perfect plan. Replaying it all in my head, even I had to nod and sigh. Putting myself in the enemy's shoes, if I were told to figure out a way to destroy myself, I couldn't have drawn up a move this vicious. Seriously, they really went all out. Imagining dozens, hundreds of them sitting around a table, staying up all night racking their brains to figure out how to deal with me. I burst out laughing. A bitter, contemptuous laugh. No wonder the alien chat channels had been full of mockery lately, saying I was about to die. Meanwhile, the human side, those in power, were as silent as statues, watching me get hailed as a hero. So, in their eyes, I was already a walking corpse. No one cares about a dead man, and no one dares risk the wrath of a corpse right before it drops. To them, I was just a joke. I gently stroked the cold steel beneath my hand, my gaze stopping at the red and yellow flag fluttering at the bow. My eyes were icy, as if piercing through the desolate sky, as if I could clearly see the faces of those schemers. The ones feeling pity, the ones sneering, the ones trembling in fear. They pitted Su Mo's impending doom. They mocked Su Mo's foolishness and lack of strategy. And then they trembled at the final wrath of Su Mo, terrified of being dragged down to hell with him. They didn't see themselves as cowards. On the contrary, they fancied themselves the hope of humanity. They believed sacrificing the majority of humans was a price worth paying, the dark night before the dawn. They wanted to drown out the light named Su Mo, so I could never shine again. But they truly understood nothing. They didn't understand that as long as I kept my mouth shut, there would be no 20,000 aliens, no conspiracy. And in exactly 4 days, on the night the disaster struck, they would all be wiped out. They also didn't understand that as long as I gave the word, all of humanity, all the aliens, this entire wasteland, would be reset to chaos. But what they understood even less were the ordinary people. The people who only needed a piece of bread and a sip of clean water to smile in their sleep. The people willing to starve to the bone just to shield their children from the wind and rain so they could sleep peacefully for one night. The people working themselves to the bone for 15 hours under the 35-degree sun just to rebuild their lost homes. The people who crawled in the chat channels every day, begging like dogs, just for someone to teach them a little shipbuilding knowledge. Those people are me, are you, are them. What they want, you people have never understood. You only care about benefits, only care about results, only care about yourselves. Your mouths are always spouting about the so-called future of humanity. The darkness has covered everything, and the dawn has yet to arrive. I can't lead everyone into the light. But as for those monsters hiding in the dark, greedy and ignorant, those vultures just waiting for me to weaken so they can tear me apart and feast. This time, not a single one will escape. Standing on the roof of the captain's cabin, the freezing wasteland wind lashed at my face, but my body was burning like fire. To be human, to live a life, I don't seek fame or justification. I don't need to save the world. I just need a clear conscience. I just need my mind to be at peace. And this time, if I don't kill until heads roll and blood flows, if I don't dye the ocean red with alien blood, if I don't make those snakes in the dark tremble in fear, I won't be satisfied. I won't accept it. I cannot forgive. Mom, Dad, if you two were still here, you'd support me too. I looked up at the starry sky, remembering how my dad, after finishing dinner, would pat his belly and say, "If there's a war, just call, and I'm going to the front." I remembered my mom laughing and scolding him. "You're 50 years old, you can barely walk straight. What makes you think you can go to the battlefield?" And my dad, his face full of pride, replying, "If I can't go, my son will go. If my son can't go, my grandson will go." I chuckled softly. A person makes countless decisions in life, but I believe, this time, I won't regret it even in death. I stepped down to the main deck and locked all the ship's doors. By the time my feet touched the ground, my mood had calmed. No more impatience, no more anger, no more anxiety. On the way back to the shelter, the overall plan gradually became clear in my mind. I opened the main door, entered the shelter, and ordered the 4 little ones not to disturb me. I sat down, ideas exploding in my head. Turning off the system panel, I grabbed a pen and paper and wrote the first heading. 1. Location of the 20,000 aliens. It is currently 11 p.m., February 17th, Doomsday Calendar. The ocean disaster will arrive at dawn on the 22nd. 4 days left. Right now, the aliens assigned to attack the basin are still scattered among their tribes, ungathered to avoid detection. It's highly likely they'll only mass their forces in the final 2 days to arrive just before the disaster and ensure their combat strength. After the attack, they'll scatter again. The best time to investigate is from now until right before the disaster. As long as we scout the right direction, we'll definitely find clues. And honestly, the investigation method isn't complicated at all. I just need 3 things. 2 stable shortwave radios capable of transmitting signals over 1,000 kilometers. 1 upgraded brick phone to scan for alien locations within a 300 kilometers radius. 1 unique encryption code that only I understand. But as the plan became clear under the light, knowing the market still had radios in stock, I sighed, stretched, and stood up. No one can withstand an assassin from the future. No one can match me. In the future, in that world, I can have anything I want. Currently, the heaven-stealing talisman's energy has 1.5 bars left. An hour and a half isn't enough to repeat the disaster survival process and sail to the Grand Canyon. But to test the communication equipment and receive a message, I only need 2 minutes. 90 minutes equals more than 30 reentries into the talisman world. 1 direction each time. 30 different directions around the basin. Aliens, get ready to tremble. Pei Xiao, can I trust you? Life is a grand stage, and everyone harbors the desire to be the director. Near midnight, when I called Pei Xiao into the underground shelter, the first man from Hope Village to step foot in here, he was almost in a panic. Sweat poured down his forehead like rain, dripping onto the floor. Not because it was hot, but because right next to me, a loaded rifle sat with its safety off. He was so scared his face turned pale. "Chief, village chief, I swear to heaven and earth. I swear on the honor of the Pei ancestors. I, Pei Xiao, have absolutely never done anything to betray you. This alien investigation, I put my life on the line. If I slack off, if I betray you, you can kill me. I'm really innocent. The aliens are just sly foxes hiding their tails. I'll take my men out tonight. Even if I have to dig 3 feet into the ground, I'll drag them out. A man in his 40s, his face scrunched up in misery, looking exactly like a villain on TV being interrogated but refusing to confess. I sat in the middle, my finger tapping lightly on the rifle, and said slowly, Pei Xiao, if you say so, I'll believe you for now. But listen carefully. After what I'm about to say, if you don't want to be the intelligence captain anymore, I won't blame you. The mission I'm about to give you concerns the survival of the village, of me, of you, and the future of humanity. It's very likely you'll have to sacrifice yourself, endure hardships, and even be misunderstood. Will you accept the mission? Do you understand what I mean? Listen closely. I'm not testing you. I'm not threatening you. I just need an answer straight from your heart. Pei Xiao used to be a scout. Aside from Zhong Qingshu, no one in the village could match him in gathering intelligence. And he answered without hesitation, I don't understand, but I'm ready to accept. Even Oreo, hiding in the shadows, startled and gave a slight nod. He wasn't lying. Go on, I said. I accept the mission because I am your soldier. Taking orders is my duty. I have no right to refuse. What I don't understand is why you waited until now to give such a difficult mission. I don't understand why you've always had to shoulder all the pressure alone, letting us hide under your wings to grow. This is the apocalypse. This is the wasteland. We aren't some greenhouse flowers. We are warriors. And we can stand by your side to overcome everything. Pei Xiao stood up straight, his voice booming, radiating an imposing aura. His eyes were resolute, his face showing the ruggedness of a commoner, but possessing the backbone of a warrior. He didn't say it, but I heard it loud and clear. I am someone you can trust. I didn't need Oreo's confirmation. Just feeling the aura erupting from his core, I immediately stood up and placed a hand on his shoulder. At the same time, I picked up the rifle on the table, flicked the safety on, and handed it straight to him. A movement so decisive he barely had time to react. This man definitely had a past. But right now, I didn't want to ask. I only knew that from this minute on, Intelligence Captain Pei Xiao officially became my first trusted confidant. He had ambition, EQ, intelligence, and most importantly, he was the same kind of person as me. A gun sometimes doesn't represent anything, but at this moment, it was everything. There were only 3 handguns in the village, yet this rifle was now in his hands. That was absolute trust, absolute reliance. Seeing me hand over the gun, Pei Xiao understood immediately. He raised the rifle, his movements as precise as a true soldier. Militiaman Pei Xiao of Hope Village, ready for orders. Very good, very good. I patted his shoulder hard a few times, then turned back toward the desk. Behind me, Pei Xiao immediately stored the gun in his inventory and followed. Inside the office, the lights were as bright as day. He looked around curiously as he walked. After all, he was the first person from the village to set foot in the underground shelter. But when his eyes landed on the massive object on the desk, he froze. Village Chief, is this? I smiled, smirking. That's right. 2 PRC, 2090 tactical radio sets. Integrated automatic direction finding system. Works with both static and tactical antennas. I assume you're no stranger to this. Pei Xiao rattled off like a machine. Not a stranger at all. I've been drooling over this since back on Earth. The Aussies' radios are top tier. Communicating over 2,000 kilometers is a breeze. Easy to use, designed so even an idiot couldn't mess it up. Village Chief, where did you score such a sweet deal? Seeing his eyes light up like a kid with a new toy, I laughed. In an era with chat channels, who uses these anymore? That's exactly why I managed to dig up 2 sets if I looked hard enough. Never mind the radios, I've got a vehicle ready for you too. I patted the machine covered by a black cloth next to it, then pulled it off. Pei Xiao looked inside, his eyes bulging, his jaw dropping, completely stunned. After a moment, he gritted his teeth and said, Village Chief, like you said, this era has chat channels. Using this massive thing is a waste. It costs so few points to add a friend instantly. Kill a few aliens for points, and you make it back right away. You really didn't need to buy these. I shook my head. It's not about the price. Have you ever thought about what happens if one day the chat channel stops working? He froze again. But just 3 to 5 seconds later, piecing my words together, he shouted, "Village Chief, the chat channel is going to be cut off. That's why we need this to communicate." I nodded. Understanding it that way works too. Your in might still work, but the connection at the village might run into issues. When that happens, even with the chat channel, you won't be able to contact me. So we have to rely on this monster. I'm giving you a mission. Come sit here and listen closely. I motioned for him to sit on the left, took out the upgraded brick phone, demonstrated all its features, and handed it to him. Tomorrow, prepare everything thoroughly. If you need to modify the Earth Tiger, use all the tools on my end. Bring enough living supplies, diesel, weapons, the radio, and emergency gear. The morning after tomorrow, when I announced the heavy rain on the World Channel, you set out immediately. Take the people you truly trust. The number can be small, but they must be loyal. From the 12 o'clock direction relative to the shelter, just scout straight in that direction. Use this phone to record all alien locations. Remember, before the disaster strikes, absolutely do not return. Monitor all their activities, record changes in their positions and gathering spots. At 11:30 p.m. on the 21st, use this codebook to contact me. Transmit all the alien coordinates. Once that's done, don't worry about the Earth Tiger, worry about your own lives. I'll send the ship to pick you up. It sounded complicated, but it was actually very simple. However, right after hearing it, Pei Xiao asked, "Is scouting just one direction enough, village chief? What if there are aliens in other directions?" The scanning radius is only 300 kilometers. From the 19th to the 21st, if we take turns driving, we can cover 1,500 to 2,000 kilometers. Just one direction feels like a bit of a waste. I had anticipated this. Don't worry. Just follow my orders exactly. And from now until the next few days, I'll be giving you many more missions. I hope you won't question any of them. Treat every order like the first one and execute it with all your heart. This time, the future of Hope Village and the entire basin I'm placing in your hands. The radio isn't just equipment. It's a passing of the torch, a mission. As I lifted the largest radio set and handed it to him, the middle-aged man's eyes turned sharp and cold. He nodded firmly, without hesitation. Go. Absolutely do not breathe a word of tonight's conversation to anyone. Prepare early, rest early. This battle will be brutal. Do not let your guard down. Understood, village chief. Under the pitch-black night, I saw Pei Xiao out of the underground shelter, then returned to the 3rd floor, my main workspace. From start to finish, Oreo stood by my side, hearing every single word clearly. Although she didn't have obvious divine powers, because she possessed a divine spark, Oreo's judgment far exceeded that of ordinary people. When not interfered with by external forces, she could instantly tell if someone was lying or telling the truth. From beginning to end, with every word Pei Xiao spoke, Oreo silently nodded in confirmation. That proved my eye for people had never been wrong. I rubbed her head, tossed her an energy apple, and turned back to the blank paper in front of me. Without resting, I continued writing the next heading. 2. Weapons to annihilate the 20,000 aliens. The technological weapons in the shelter were still limited to homemade bombs, small machine guns, and rifles. On land, they could still put up a fight, but if the battle took place at sea, fighting many with few, these things were too weak. The aliens just had to dive underwater and they'd vanish. Only when the shelter was upgraded to level 5, unlocking GPS and missiles, would I absolutely need a wide-area destructive weapon, enough to guarantee firepower for the Hope. This type of weapon only needed to meet 2 criteria: cheap ammo, so I could fire freely without feeling the pinch; high damage and wide area of effect, with adjustable intensity depending on the situation. As long as it met those 2 conditions, combined with the Hope's wave-piercing speed, the aliens would be nothing but fish on a chopping block. A weapon that could be mounted on the ship and met both conditions. It sounded difficult, but thinking it over, it wasn't impossible. Just the other day, people were saying the deck of the Hope looked like a warship. Well, they really raised a flag there. If I could mount a large caliber cannon, 300 millimeters or above, the aliens' doomsday would arrive instantly. I sketched a crude cannon and chuckled. Dignity lies on the edge of a sword. Truth lies within the range of a cannon. If you want others to fear you, you have to hit them hard, hit them deep. You have to make them remember who is untouchable. If you want the aliens to tremble, then aim the cannon straight at their heads. Just as I thought of that, my mind stirred. The creation reward linked to the hope from the system began to appear, enveloping the entire workspace. Cannons are very expensive to craft. Dragging the whole tech tree along is exhausting too. But what if I didn't have to worry about the cost and just roll the top tier one? Countless gold and red cards fluttered wildly in the void. Under the light of the hope, the space was dyed in the colors of dawn. I stared intently at the cards with identical backs. After flipping four that were complete trash, I stopped and sat down on the floor. Historically, naval weapons have always been stronger than most infantry weapons. During Napoleon's time, when the Emperor's 12-pounder cannons were still being praised, warships were casually sporting 24-pounders and 36-pounders all over the deck like cheap goods. Even with the same 155mm cannon, the Navy had a longer barrel, longer range, greater power, and faster reload speeds due to automation. High mobility because warships move faster than cars. Strong defense because of gun turrets, something field artillery didn't have. Not to mention the 203mm, 406mm, and 460mm monsters that could obliterate you in one shot. Knowing the strengths and weaknesses of the Hope, I grew even more expectant. If I could pull a massive naval gun, wouldn't that be perfect? Right now, I needed something related to weapons. Any wide-area weapon would do. Technological weapons would be even better, making ammo production easier. If it was a mystical weapon, I'd have to consider if it could sustain a long fight. With the currently scattered aliens, even if I pulled a Dongfeng missile, it wouldn't be as useful as a cannon. This time, the system gave me one free draw. I had the right to keep any card in the reserve list. Unlike those scam games, this system was very considerate. It genuinely wanted to give me good stuff. If I spent an extra 1,000 points to draw, the open cards wouldn't disappear, but would go into the reserve pool. For example, one free draw plus 5 extra draws equals 6 cards to choose from. If I was unlucky, spending 5,000 points to draw from the pool and then rolling the 50,000 point pack wouldn't be a loss. Regardless, I had to try 6 draws first. If they were all trash, I'd pull out and play the 50k pack. First draw was free. I wasn't in a rush. I sat cross-legged to calm my mind before sending out the thought for a normal draw. In the blink of an eye, the hope vanished, replaced by tens of thousands of gold and red cards filling the sky. Every second, thousands of cards flowed by like water. I casually grabbed one. Once selected, the other cards stopped, and the hope reappeared. Let's see. Is the first pull any good? I gently peeled back the top right corner. Oh, the sea? The corner of the card showed blue ocean waves, proving this was a seagoing vessel, not some village pond dinghy. A seagoing vessel definitely had value. I immediately flipped the whole thing. A flash of light. A large capacity fishing vessel. Description: a large tonnage fishing vessel with powerful catching capabilities and a high-end cold storage system. Attributes: super fishing net. Can be used once every 3 days. Attracts all aquatic creatures within a 500 m radius. If the net breaks, it self-repairs after 15 days. Cold storage hold. Reduces the decay rate of items inside by 50%. Evaluation: 3 days without a catch. One catch feeds you for 3 years. That's really good. A 500 m radius, and the net even self-repairs. But unfortunately, I need weapons right now. This ship is strictly a resource-hoarding treasure. One haul would be tens of tons of fish, more than enough to trade freely. But my storage is already full. Taking this ship right now would be a bit of a waste. Therefore, I shook my head, pushed the card aside, and drew for the second time. This draw costs a whole day of my labor. Please give me something good. I yanked a card and flipped it from the bottom left corner. This feeling. Yes, the sea again. A modern warship. Before drawing, I had mentally prepared myself to pull some random junk because the system even threw paper boats in there, so you never knew what you'd get. But to pull a modern warship on just the second try left me stunned. Fate really knows how to spoil a guy. Good thing I didn't impulsively choose the 50,000 point pack right away. This ship is no joke. I flipped the entire card, glancing over the warship's silhouette before checking the detailed specs. Fletcher-class destroyer. Description: known as the king of anti-aircraft in World War II. Equipped with high-efficiency AA guns like the 40mm Bofors and 20mm Oerlikon, creating a dense net of fire at medium and close ranges. It guarantees control of the skies. Not to mention it's mounted with the Mk-12 127mm main gun, capable of firing at both aerial and naval targets. The externally mounted proximity fuse shells, combined with the 40mm and 20mm, create a three-layered anti-aircraft defense. Options: 40mm AA gun / 20mm machine gun combo. Includes shell crafting blueprints. Mk-12 127mm dual-purpose main gun. Includes maintenance manual. Evaluation: are you expecting this thing to dominate the high seas? As expected, it truly is the famous American monster of the wartime era. I rubbed my chin, my eyes lingering on every line of stats as I started calculating. This was one of the most famous destroyers in the U.S. Navy. Designed in the late 1930s, a total of 175 ships were produced in just 2 years. Its reliability spoke for itself. 5 Mk-12 127mm guns. Semi-automatic loading through an enclosed tube, electrically operated, with a firing rate of 24 to 30 rounds per minute. It even had automatic fuses to increase accuracy. If I could just mount one of these on the Hope, my combat power would instantly jump a tier. But it was a shame. The Mk-12 was primarily an anti-aircraft gun. For ship-to-ship or surface combat, it was a bit lacking. In fact, choosing this main gun wouldn't even be as good as choosing the anti-aircraft artillery complex, which was once rated the strongest of the World War. Drawing a warship and drawing its guns, only to land on this half-baked type, made my head throb a little. The Mk-12 required 5 people to operate together. That wasn't hard since I had the mechanics. But in terms of power, speed, and stability, it still lost out to the large-caliber guns of its era. Should I keep going? Or should I stop and invest in upgrading the Mk-12? If this were the last card, I'd take it immediately. But getting something this good on just the second pull started to kindle a spark of delusion in my heart. I looked at my remaining 23,000 points, then gazed up at the sky where the Hope was hovering and glowing. For some reason, I could feel it so clearly. The ship was talking to me, as if it was telling me that among those cards, there was an even better fit, and that card was about to appear. The ship was calling me. It sounded like a hallucination, but when I asked myself again, I knew it wasn't. I took a deep breath and whispered, "System, keep drawing." Placing the Fletcher card next to the fishing boat card, I waved my hand and drew 3 cards in a row. The first card. The second card. Still nothing. 2,000 points gone just like that. The third card. Still didn't feel right. 3,000 survival points vanished in seconds. I started to feel a painful twinge in my chest, exactly like a gambling addict. But the feeling of the Hope calling out to me was getting clearer and clearer. Stop overthinking. If the draws were linked to the Hope, then I should trust my gut. Even if I burned through all my points, I wouldn't regret it. The fourth card. No. The fifth card. Still no. My survival points dropped to 18,000. A whole week's worth of savings evaporated. My eyes were bloodshot, my gaze burning, veins popping. I looked exactly like a gambler on a losing streak who just couldn't walk away. The call from the Hope hadn't faded. It was getting stronger, more urgent, as if the very next card was the one. No more regrets. Once you choose to believe, you don't regret it even if you go broke. I gritted my teeth and kept drawing. The sixth card. No. The seventh card. No. The eighth. The ninth. Wait, this feeling. With only 13,000 points left, I almost unconsciously drew the 10th card. A blinding golden light erupted. The normal draw interface was forcibly halted. All the cards in the air froze. The Hope seemed to tear through space, charging straight into the middle of the sky. A ship and a card, as if bound together by an invisible chain. The light, the vibration, they were perfectly in sync. Holy shit. An all-in gamble, and I actually hit the jackpot. The feeling from the Hope was no longer hidden. It screamed directly into my mind like a thunderclap. Out of the 12 cards drawn, only the 10th one was glowing. An 11,000-point gamble. That was no small change. Cold sweat broke out down my spine. I'm done playing. I'm quitting gambling from now on. Confirming my eyes weren't playing tricks on me, I slumped to the ground, feeling like I had just survived a life-or-death wager. The moment of hitting it big was definitely thrilling, but thinking back, if I had missed, who knows how disastrous the consequences would have been. No more slow reveals. I took a deep breath, calmed my racing heart, and forcefully flipped the card over. A familiar silhouette. A familiar configuration. Even though this was my first time seeing this ship in real life, I had sailed it hundreds of times in my dreams. From the main guns and missile launch systems to the air wing and underwater defenses, I was no stranger to the warship on this card, because it was the highest tier warship in the game's destroyer class. Tier 1, Pinnacle Class Destroyer. I gripped the card in my hand, looking at the stats popping up. Without hesitation, I waved my hand and selected it immediately, exiting the normal draw interface. Even though the process was a bit bumpy, drawing exactly what I needed brought a sense of satisfaction, like a lifelong burden had been lifted. The moment the Hope called out to me, a series of bizarre warship images had flashed through my mind. From magical ships in movies, to massive World War battleships, to modern 10,000-ton destroyers, and finally, even spaceships. The Hope was truly demanding firepower. Even though it was epic grade, its firepower only consisted of 2 moves. 1, ramming straight into the enemy. 2, a light sweep with some small-caliber machine guns. It lacked firepower, and it knew it. That was why it summoned the Tier 1 Destroyer card. Sharing the same origin, every weapon slot on the Destroyer could be installed on the Hope, and I didn't hesitate at all in choosing it. Main gun. The main gun of the Tier 1 Destroyer had a 130mm caliber. It wasn't the largest, not like the 155mm of the Type 055 class or the 152mm of Peter the Great. But this was a weapon specially buffed by the system. And more importantly, its fire rate, 140 rounds per minute. The other specs of this devastating main gun were nothing to scoff at either. Total weight, excluding ammo, 41 tons. Barrel length, 70 calibers. Standard shell, 32 kilograms each. Elevation angle, -20 to +85 degrees. Elevation speed, 20 degrees per second. Maximum rotation angle, 360 degrees. Muzzle velocity, 1,250 meters per second. Effective range, 34.5 kilometers. Maximum range, 41.5 kilometers. The -20 degree depression angle allowed it to fire directly at targets hidden underwater. With an effective range of nearly 35 kilometers, it meant that even if the foreign races used speedboats, they wouldn't be able to escape. This gun perfectly made up for the Hope's lack of firepower before the vertical launch system could be activated. Although, the artillery shells were indeed a bit pricey. A single shell for this destroyer gun, if crafted via the system, cost a whopping 800 points. To mass-produce them, I'd have to upgrade the lathe to intermediate level. But that was fine. I could cast the shell casings myself using the furnace. As for the explosives, mixing TNT with AD would do the trick. With the main weapon sorted out, I wasn't too worried about the ammo anymore. TNT was an extremely stable explosive. Even if an accident happened during assembly, it wouldn't detonate easily. It was very safe, and the production method was simple. Simple enough that even a university lab could make it. Plus, I had technical support from the Dayuan shelter, so this was nothing to worry about. The night was late. After going through such a roller coaster of emotions, even though the outcome was perfect, I still felt exhausted to my core. The opponents this time could be dozens, even hundreds of schemers. It might even be an alliance of multiple shelters joining forces. To fight a group like that, and to win beautifully, the pressure on my shoulders was as heavy as a mountain. I looked down at the blank piece of paper where I had written my 2 main objectives, drew a circle around them, and wrote down a third heading. 3. Uncover the true faces of the enemy. Now that I had the coordinates of the foreign races and the weapons, wiping out 20,000 of them was no longer just a dream. But destroying them, and this conspiracy would only damage their morale and make the royal clans a laughingstock. For the mastermind hiding in the shadows, that loss wasn't enough. This time, the spies hiding behind the foreign races had a very clear purpose. They knew killing me was incredibly difficult, so they shifted to inciting the foreign races, using 20,000 lives to hold me back and ruin my potential. But they never expected that I could break their formation. and break it with absolute, crushing dominance. If they could truly cooperate with the foreign races, then they definitely knew each other's identities. There was no way they'd dare to gamble with the lives of 20,000 foreign troops. So, for this voyage, I had to set one more goal, that bastard from the Zeus Club. Catch him, and I'd dig out all the pests hiding behind him. Every line I wrote was clear, coherent, and decisive. A path that seemed hopeless to others was just a walk in the park for me. Finished writing, I folded the paper, stuffed it deep into my storage space, and stood up. Returning to my bedroom, I lay down and opened the world chat interface, something I hadn't bothered looking at in a long time. I scrolled through a few random, nonsensical chats from others and gradually drifted off to sleep. Before the disaster, all preparations were complete. Compared to previous times, my preparations this time were more comprehensive than anyone else's on the wasteland. I just had to wait for the great ocean calamity to begin. In just 10 days, when I reunited with my sister, I would have enough strength and confidence to flip this rotten table over. With that thought in mind, at exactly 8 a.m., upon receiving the daily log and seeing my survival points jump back up to 15,000, I immediately sprang out of bed. I went for a morning run, washed my face, ate the breakfast brought by the chef, then left my room. I boarded the Hope to inspect the newly installed destroyer gun. Grabbing the artillery shell blueprints from the magazine below the barrel, I walked back to the shelter with a light, excited step. Before getting an intermediate lathe for mass production, assembling the shells by hand wasn't too difficult. The casings didn't require high technology either. As long as the specs and standards were correct, it was fine. I started the generator, fired up the furnace that had been resting for 2 days, and began pouring materials into the molds. 3 minutes later, consuming 40 units of basic materials, the first shell casing came out of the oven. I called up the system's appraisal and confirmed the casing was 100% up to design standards. Without taking a break, I immediately moved on to the next step, crafting the explosives. TNT, AD, hexogen, or C4. These names were all too familiar. Before going to sleep last night, I had proactively traded with the Dayuan shelter. This morning, I received all the production documents, along with 2 standard test samples. Human science was beginning to recover. Aside from a few wanderers or commoners, for organized bases, restoring the explosive technology chain was a piece of cake. So when I got the samples, I wasn't surprised at all. I immediately set to work researching and crafting. Thanks to the LCD TV helping me troubleshoot, by 2 p.m., the first batch of TNT was completed in the shelter. At 2:20 p.m., the first batch of AD also appeared in the container, absolutely flawless. Following the artillery shell specs, at exactly 4 p.m., the first shell for the destroyer gun was officially born. I just smiled faintly, slapped a 01 label on it, and dove right back into instructing the mechanic team. With only 3.5 days left until the disaster, and not knowing how brutal the naval battles would be, the ship needed to be armed with at least over 1,500 artillery shells. If I did it alone, I wouldn't finish even if I stayed up all night. But now, with the mechanics helping, things were much easier. After 3 rounds of instruction, the twice-upgraded mechanics knew how to make TNT and AD, and the once-upgraded mechanics had grasped the shell casing process. If we weren't limited by the furnace, which only produced 20 casings an hour, maxing out at 500 a day, the mechanic team could have finished 1,000 shells in a single day. Meanwhile, Peixiao dropped by while I was making ammo to take the Earth Tiger for a chassis upgrade, improving its off-road capabilities. Driving over 1,500 kilometers in 3 days across this kind of terrain wasn't just a test for humans. It was torture for the vehicle. To avoid any risks, I took advantage of the time spent transporting ammo to the ship to help further modify the Earth Tiger. Meanwhile, Chun Xin walked by to report on Hope Village's progress in researching energy-absorbing materials. Finally, through sheer, relentless effort, our village's research team had developed a rubber-like material, temporarily named energy-absorbing gel. Although this gel would be destroyed immediately after taking a heavy impact, whatever it protected would remain completely intact. The best part was that the formula was incredibly simple. Just mix a little chemical solution with the sap of the bay tree, a species native to the wasteland, and it was done. The chemical reaction happened so fast, it was like dropping Mentos into Coke. The material expanded to 10, even 20 times its original size. I was very intrigued by this discovery and immediately joined them in testing it. The verified results? Highly effective. Applying 1 or 2 layers wasn't enough to withstand a torrential flood, but if you coated it with 20 to 30 layers, the protection was extremely significant. From the very beginning, Chunshun had targeted a specific customer base, small and medium-sized shelters. Lone wolves who had given up on the world definitely wouldn't spend money to fight the disaster. They'd just build stone walls or hide in their basements, staying dry for the first 15 minutes and calling it a day. But medium-sized shelters didn't have enough time to build a boathouse in just 3 short days. Therefore, this cheap, easy-to-make, and urgently needed energy-absorbing gel would become a hot commodity. As long as we hit that psychological sweet spot, Hope Village could rake in massive profits within a day or 2. There was no need to worry about a long-term market. Not bad at all. Very clear thinking. Since it's decided, start buying up the raw materials. After I waved my hand and approved the batch of supplies for Chunshun, the whole village immediately sprang into action. Bay trees weren't rare, but because over 100 villagers were gathering them in scattered locations, even though they had bought up nearly 70% of the market share, no one noticed. A few people mentioned it sporadically on the world chat, but it was quickly buried by other streams of information. Having secured 70%, Hope Village didn't let go of the remaining 30% either. Under Chunshun's command, the whole village continued to buy it up bit by bit. It wasn't until 10 p.m., when there wasn't a single unit of bay tree material left on the entire market, that they finally stopped. By the time anyone noticed, it was already too late. Hope Village had monopolized the raw materials and was no longer dependent on the market. Brother Suemo, we're pulling an all-nighter tonight. By tomorrow morning, we can guarantee continuous production. According to our initial calculations, it'll only take half a day to make our money back. And with the materials we have, 3 days of nonstop production means we'll rake in at least 15 to 20 times the resources. Mentioning a 20-fold return, Chunshun's eyes practically glowed. This was literally highway robbery in broad daylight. Of course, he knew perfectly well that 100% of this sweet success came from the information I provided. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., I would announce the details of the disaster. When the time comes, go all out. Seeing the excited faces of the management team, and then noticing Pei Xiao quietly nodding in the corner, I smiled and leisurely walked up the dirt path back to the shelter. On the second floor, the 4 kids were still studying hard. Connie was also taking advantage of her recovery time to study with them. That peaceful scene made me reluctant to disturb them. I just quietly went up to the 3rd floor and lay down on my small bed. Life on the wasteland was sometimes so slow that after going through so much, you'd be startled to realize only a single day had passed. Other times, it was so fast that before you could even prepare, time had already flown by. In the top right corner of the game interface, the disaster countdown showed only 3 days left. Wasteland calendar, February 19th. To others, it wasn't a special day. But to me, lying in this dark room right now, it was a crucial milestone. Tomorrow, this play would officially raise its curtains. After all these days of preparation, it was time for these seeds to bloom. Hiding for over half a month, practically vanishing from the chat boards, living like an ascetic monk, working tirelessly day in and day out. Staring at the dim ceiling, feeling the damp cold of the blanket and pillow, looking at the dusty cup by the bedside. I knew the day of sweet reward after bitter struggle had finally arrived. The night of February 18th, bleeding into the early hours of February 19th. The moment the night transitioned into a new day, exactly like the first snowfall of the 7-day blizzard, signaled the approaching disaster. As I fell into a deep sleep, a thunderstorm accompanied by lightning immediately rolled in. Rumble, like the roar of an angry god, like the omen of a descending catastrophe. Every bolt of lightning that tore through the sky illuminated the pitch-black land below. No one wanted to die, and no one was willing to give up their desire to set foot in the new world. In that tense moment, over 90% of the large-scale settlements were entering their final sprint. Even the lone wolves were racking their brains, trying to prepare supplies to set sail. On the peak of Taisher Mountain, a row of temporary awnings had been erected to block the wind and rain, creating a stable environment for the villagers working frantically. Pots of piping hot soup were brought over by the chefs, dispelling the biting cold and re-energizing everyone. At this stage, over 80% of Hope Village's food reserves had been traded for all sorts of tools. 30 people were in charge of production, 40 on pressing materials, 40 on packaging, and the remaining 20 handled sealing, inventory, and warehousing. The division of labor was incredibly efficient. Since they no longer had to build a ship, the work was neat and clear-cut, making the villagers' nightlife both busy and fulfilling. Going all in on this risky business venture, everyone knew the stakes were extremely high. But what put everyone at ease was that this venture had been approved by Sumo. The management team could be wrong. They could make mistakes, but Almighty Su, the man they trusted absolutely, never would. Amidst the relentless downpour, everyone was brimming with anticipation. How many resources would this energy-absorbing gel bring in? But on this wasteland about to face nature's wrath, the people of Hope Village weren't the only ones eagerly awaiting results. Shifting perspectives. In a green moss-covered plain, there was a settlement many times larger than Hope Village, brightly lit in the middle of the stormy night. Unlike the frantic scenes elsewhere, at this shelter, under the lightning tearing through the dark, you could clearly see the excitement on every single person's face. Wearing raincoats and holding umbrellas, their steps were light, as if carrying a fire in their hearts. Despite the torrential rain, they all stepped out of their homes in unison, got their bearings, gathered into large groups, and marched forward like a colony of ants carrying food. 100 meters, 200 meters, 500 meters. The further they went, the larger the crowd grew. Every flash of lightning painted a picture-perfect scene in real life. Half an hour passed. Despite the muddy, slippery ground, the crowd reached the end of the road leading out of the residential area. About 300 meters ahead, a massive mound of earth appeared before them. That mound was not small by any means. It was even larger than the underground shelter Hope Village was using. Over 200 meters long and about 20 meters high. Because it was long and gently sloped, looking at it from a distance didn't give the same imposing feeling as other underground structures. From afar, you could see the center of the mound had no roof. It looked like a giant volcanic crater, leaving the pouring rain to crash right into it. Yet, it was this very mound that made everyone present's eyes light up, like children seeing a new toy. Line up, everyone. Don't push. The test hasn't started yet. Hey, Lu Xin. I'm talking to you. Scrape the mud off your shoes. The rest of you too, if your shoes are muddy, scrape them clean before going in. Anyone with plastic bags, wrap your feet before stepping inside. On the side of the mound was a small door, just wide enough for 3 people to walk side by side. 4 guards stood blocking the entrance, guns in hand, constantly reminding the crowd. But no one complained. Everyone cooperated in an orderly fashion. Clean shoes got a quick scrape. Dirty shoes were taken off and stored in personal inventories. Some people even walked inside barefoot. Everyone was extremely hyped. The scene was no different from a supermarket offering a 50% discount on opening day. The entrance quickly became packed. Each person took out a wooden ID tag, handed it to the guards for verification, and was allowed inside. The stream of people continuously moved deeper. The strangest part was, despite the massive crowd, there was no noise. It was as if someone had muted all their mics. They were silent not because of any rules, nor out of fear, but because, as they passed through the long, dark corridor and entered the center of the mound, they saw it. A ship. Anyone who laid eyes on that ship was instantly mesmerized. They unconsciously walked to the open space in front of it and quietly sat down. In their eyes right now, there was only the ship. This was the vessel that would carry them to the shores of hope. It was their only faith in surviving the harsh oceans of the wasteland. It was what they had poured all their hard-earned resources into over so many days. It was the treasure they had dreamed of countless times. And if I had been there, I definitely would have exclaimed, "Dayuan Shelter, you guys are truly top tier." Just 20 days ago, in Su Chan's video, everyone saw clearly that after splitting from Ing Tianlong, the Dayuan Shelter had been disastrously weakened. The entire camp had only a little over 20 houses left. The population had dropped by half, to less than 300 people. In that situation, even as an official shelter, there were only 2 possible outcomes. 1. cling to some larger camp, or two, divide the assets and scatter. But now, in less than half a month, the number of houses had increased by 40 to 50. The population had skyrocketed to 780 people, a terrifying number. Even though women and children made up a large portion, in terms of scale, Dayuan had truly stepped into the ranks of a large-scale shelter. And the ship sitting in that mound was the strongest proof. Unlike my massive steel ship, the Dayuan shelter chose a wooden warship, a super galleon. It wasn't that they didn't want to use steel. It wasn't that they lacked the technology. It was that they lacked the production capabilities. No 24/7 blast furnaces. No modular shipyards. No massive machinery to run continuously. Simply put, it was impossible to replicate a miracle like the Hope. Therefore, 99% of the shelters could only aim for wooden ships. Wooden ships, the pinnacle of history. History shows that Chinese shipbuilding once led the world in ancient times. Zheng He set sail with a massive fleet. During Emperor Yang of Sui's reign, the dragon boats had 4 decks and 160 rooms, something many modern countries would struggle to replicate. This wooden ship survival race clearly exposed the distinct advantages of the different camps. According to the classification, under 300 people, small camp. 300 to 500, submedium. 500 to 700, medium. Over 700, large camp. With only 3 days left until the disaster, the situation was very clear. Small camps lacked resources, lacked leaders, and lacked a collective spirit. Everyone just built a simple raft and left their fate to the currents. This group made up about 20% and was aptly named the Leave It to Fate tier. Live or die, it was all up to luck. One step above them was the group currently taking the world chat by storm. The Fuguei-san ships, or arc ships. Square bow, flat stern, wide hull, low draft. Hard to sink, easy to build, moderate capacity. Especially suited for harsh environments. It was the type of ship Zheng He once used, so it had a strong tradition in China. 65% of the shelters, mostly medium and small medium ones, chose this option. Classification: over 30 meters, gold sand ship. 20 to 30 meters, silver sand ship. Smaller, bronze sand ship. As long as you could build a sand ship, you had stepped out of the Leave It to Fate tier. You could fight back, you could survive, and you had a chance to set foot in the new world. But rising above them all was the galleon, a tier that only large camps had the power to enter. The galleon, the mistress of the seas for 2 centuries. Hundreds of cannons lined up, sails catching the wind, the legendary battles of the Age of Sail. Despite its flaws, the galleon remained a symbol of power for nearly 200 years. A shipbuilding timber takes 100 years to mature. A 74-gun warship requires over 2,000 century-old oak trees. Whoever controls the forests controls the fleet. And in this wasteland, timber for galleons was not lacking. In fact, it was overly abundant. As long as you had resources, as long as you were willing to spend disaster points to standardize and dry the wood, as long as you had enough people to operate it, that was enough. No need to overthink it. The galleon was the strongest in the wasteland, completely unrivaled. And right now, the Dayuan shelter had actually finished building a ship just like that. A super galleon, made entirely of wood. Deck length, 61 meters. Keel length, 49 meters. Beam, 14.7 meters. Depth, 23.17 meters. Draft, 6.8 meters. Total displacement, 1,500 tons. Relying on the game's system and abundant timber, Dayuan had poured in all their resources to construct a literal wooden monster. The most miraculous part wasn't the materials or the technology. It wasn't because they got a buff for being an official camp. It wasn't from getting lucky and opening some legendary chest. It was because there was a man standing behind them. It was him, the man who lent a hand. Speed has stabilized, Director. The warship is testing very well. The waterproofing layers have absolutely no issues. On a high platform inside the mound, hidden from the commoners below, stood over 30 people in silence. Leading them was Liu Yongyi, director of the Dayuan shelter. If in my Hope Village, with 140 people, a management team of just 10 was enough to run things smoothly, then Dayuan, with its centralized management system, was running incredibly efficiently with just over 30 people. Hearing Shin Ku's report, despite trying to keep a straight face, Liu Yongyi couldn't hide a slight smirk. Among the 171 official camps and 1,786 subordinate camps across all of Huaxia right now, that ship being tested, the Dayuan warship, was definitely in the top 20 strategically. And if you counted the entire wasteland, it easily made the top 50 strongest warships. It might not sound that high, but in actual naval combat, size didn't always dictate everything. A 60-meter ship wouldn't necessarily lose to an 80-meter one. The key factors were propulsion and firepower. Even a rank 150 ship could completely ambush and sink a top 10 ship. But the Dayuan warship brought much more than just a ranking. It brought faith and unity. That spiritual strength was so immense that the over 200 new citizens who joined after the rescue 4 days ago integrated with the original residents incredibly fast. Recalling this, Liu Yongyi smiled even brighter. Then, suddenly, he froze. Who was the reason the Dayuan shelter was thriving like this today? At that moment, the image of a man appeared in his mind again. A guy who was always smiling faintly, looking harmless, but could leave people speechless with just a single sentence. Liu Yongyi's smile vanished, replaced by a serious expression. Shinku, last night, Su Mo sent a trade request for the explosive formulas. I told Censure to coordinate it. Have you sent the documents over today? Oh shit, I was so busy I completely forgot. Shinku smacked her forehead. Her blurted curse instantly drained the color from the faces of the group behind her. The light-hearted atmosphere from a moment ago suddenly grew as taut as a bowstring. To an outsider, this reaction would definitely seem absurd. But to the people of Dayuan, it was completely normal. Because a ship could be rebuilt. But if they lost Su Mo, it was a permanent loss. From the first trade, to the time I gifted them the rescue seeds, to the massive amounts of weapons I sent over afterward. If it weren't for me, Dayuan would have starved or frozen to death by now. During the rescue mission 4 days ago, when over 1,000 foreign troops attacked, out of their 800 people, how many would have survived? The air grew tense. Fortunately, Shunke quickly caught herself. I sent it first thing this morning. Here's the full log of the transaction. She pulled a notebook from her storage space and flipped to the last page. The entire trade process for the TNT and C4 I requested last night was there, line by line. Step by step, not missing a single detail. After Liu Yongyi finished reading it, he breathed a sigh of relief. Everyone behind him also let out a collective breath. Well done. From now on, all requests from Su Mo must be our #1 priority. No matter the cost, ensure the trades go smoothly. He handed the notebook back, his eyes filled with trust mixed with a hint of guilt. He understood better than anyone what a massive loss it would be for Dayuan to lose their first priority trading rights with me. If it weren't for my 2 rounds of aid, the Dayuan warship wouldn't exist today, and the camp wouldn't have many people left. Right, the matter I asked you to look into. How is the progress? Liu Yongyi's gaze shifted downward, to where the warship was undergoing its various tests. We have received too many favors from Su Mo. We cannot be ingrates, he said, his voice heavy. Everyone understood he wasn't just saying that. If humanity's grand plan succeeded, the benefits would be unimaginably massive. But to him, that paled in comparison to what was weighing on his heart. All eyes turned to Shinku. She adjusted her short hair and gently shook her head. Director, I fully understand the importance of this matter. Since the day we established this camp, we've received too many favors from Almighty Su. Not just you, but all of us, even the people down below, remember it. But you told me to ask tactfully, to not hurt his pride. So I've hinted at it 7 or 8 times already. But every time, he just replies, you don't need to worry about this. You know Su Mo's personality. If I tell him straight up that we've reserved 200 spots on the Dayuan warship for him, with his current capabilities, he definitely would never accept this kindness. Shinku spoke in one long breath, as if venting all her frustrations. Building a ship is harder than ascending to heaven. She sighed. The entire platform fell silent. Only the sound of the wind howling through the crater remained, carrying cold moisture and a heavy feeling that weighed on everyone's hearts. Yes, building a ship was as hard as ascending to heaven. But sailing a ship? That was as hard as leaving the universe. This had become the common consensus of the entire world right now. Building a ship was easy, the hard part was its size. But operating it, sailing it smoothly? For the vast majority of people who had never even seen the ocean in their lives, it was truly an impossible mission. Normally, to operate a sand ship, you needed at least 18 sailors who both knew how to swim and how to steer. And to operate it well, with actual strategy at sea, even a 30-meter ship required up to 40 sailors. Sounds like a lot, right? But compared to a galleon, that number was just a drop in the bucket. A galleon was a large-scale naval vessel. It was practically the only military branch that had to maintain combat readiness 24 hours a day. Not because there was always war at sea, but because the weather on the ocean was so brutal that a single second of negligence meant death. There was no automated system. Everyone had to work in shifts. A tiny mistake, a small leak. On the open ocean, there was nowhere to dock, no repair equipment. Fixing it yourself was harder than playing Dark Souls with an inverted keyboard. The Dayuan warship everyone was looking at was the clearest proof. To operate it on a rotational shift, it required a minimum of 220 sailors. And that number had to cram study for days just to barely meet the standard. Because of this, everyone firmly believed one thing. No matter how strong I was, I couldn't possibly sail this ship by myself. It was simple. I was just one person. No logistics, no maintenance, no sailors, no gunners. So what was I supposed to sail? At this moment, at the foot of the platform, Su-chan, my sister, stood in the crowd. Seeing the warship as massive as a building, beads of sweat formed on her forehead. At first, hearing that the ocean was flooding in, she wasn't worried. She was even happy, thinking that going out to sea might make it easier to reunite with me. But now, looking at this colossal ship and hearing all sorts of rumors, she was starting to genuinely panic. Wait, didn't they say we'd survive on wooden rafts? Why does everyone have warships 30 meters and up? This is literally hacking the game. A hilarious yet pitiful scene flashed through her mind. On one side, a majestic, imposing warship. On the other, a tiny bamboo raft bobbing helplessly in the waves. Just thinking about it was a tragedy. Meanwhile, over in the management group, the atmosphere was buzzing with shock. Shinku, I'm telling you the truth. Stop beating around the bush. Suemo isn't the kind of person you all think he is. It might be better to just be straightforward. Are you an idiot? If you can figure it out, do it yourself. What if we say it, and Suemo gets pissed and cuts off all our trades? Or should we just invite him to fight the alien races together? We're all heading to the new world anyway. One side has the ship, the other has the strategy. It's a win-win collaboration. Exactly. Share the benefits, survive together. It makes perfect sense. Hey, don't be stupid. Listen to me. Just say the Tundra survivors deeply admire Suemo and want to invite him to join forces to cross the sea and look after our people. That'll work. Before Liu Yongyi could even get a word in, the group was already in an uproar. Everyone wanted to rush over and negotiate with me. Liu Yongyi just smiled, didn't stop them, and simply said, I think you guys have way too much free time. How about this? Everyone writes up a detailed plan and hands it over to Shinku. Then we'll hold a vote. Whichever plan gets the most votes, we use. No sooner said than done. The whole bunch actually sat down to draft a Capture Sumo's Heart campaign. Hearing this, I didn't know whether to laugh or sigh. Of course, ordinary people had no idea about this, and it certainly couldn't reach my ears while I was swinging my spear, training in a shelter several layers underground. I slept deeply last night, but the thunderstorm was so intense it woke me up multiple times. Around 4 a.m., I put on my combat gear and boarded the Hope to check things out. Only after making sure the drainage system was fine did I go back to sleep. But honestly, it wasn't the rain that kept me awake since 6 a.m. It was my body, itching so intensely it felt like I was going to crawl out of my own skin. Continuously using the heaven-stealing talisman, I could clearly feel my body bending reality. From an office worker whose hands shook just lifting a water bucket, now, after 2 months, I could bench press 180 kilograms 8 times, with a max of 235 kilograms. Testing my strength this morning, I broke my record again, from 220 kilograms to 235 kilograms. I was just a hair away from the 250 kilograms requirement to upgrade to a level 5 shelter. Thrilled, I worked out for an hour and a half like a man possessed. But true to the laws of the universe, the more you focus on it, the less it grows. The more you ignore it, the faster it skyrockets. Wiping my sweat while looking at the stat panel, I was annoyed that I was short by exactly 2 points. Hopefully, before we set sail, my stamina will get another boost. Though I didn't know the exact cause, all the signs were positive. Nothing to worry about. After a hearty breakfast with the 4 little ones and Connie, I received 2,000 survival points. That made a total of 17,000 points, enough to make up for going broke from the lottery. Satisfied, I put on my waterproof gear and left the shelter just past 8 a.m. It was still pouring heavily, with lightning flashing nonstop. Many places in the distance had already started flooding. I knew this was the final test the game had set to check everyone's ships. But for the recon team that was about to cross over 1,500 kilometers, this rain was terrible news. I stood in the storm for over 10 minutes, even climbing to the top of a mound to observe. But the heavens showed no mercy. The rain didn't let up, and lightning kept tearing across the sky. In the talisman's world, there was no water, which proved this rain couldn't last past today. However, the recon team's departure couldn't be delayed. Otherwise, they wouldn't reach the target before the disaster struck. Looking at the rain, then at the flooding ground, my heart grew heavy. The plan to track the alien races in the basin had been set 2 days ago, with 4 very clear steps. Commander Pei Xiao would set out from the 12 o'clock direction of the basin. Meanwhile, I would use the heaven-stealing talisman to jump 3 days into the future, contact him via radio to get the locations of all the alien races, and map them out. Upon returning to the present, I would immediately direct Pei Xiao, who would have only been traveling for 5 minutes, to change course to the 1 o'clock direction and continue the slaughter. I would repeat this process until the entire 1,500-kilometer radius around the basin was fully scouted. Once finished, I'd have a complete hunting map in my hands. And when the sea level rose, our hope wouldn't have to look for a place to hide. We'd take the initiative to hunt down the alien races. But no matter how airtight the plan was, it had one fatal flaw. The data from 3 days in the future was only valid if Pei Xiao actually reached the location and survived. If there was an accident on the way, an ambush, or a radio malfunction, all the information from the future would vanish into thin air. Thank goodness I upgraded the Earth Tiger's chassis yesterday. Now I just needed to spend a few more survival points to fix some minor flaws and extend the wheelbase for stability. As for major upgrades, forget it, I'll save my points for now. In reality, the Earth Tiger's upgrade potential had already been left behind by the escalating disasters. Maybe this vehicle would finally have a chance to shine in the new world. But for now, I decided to hoard my survival points for when I truly needed them. From the 2,000 survival points I got this morning, I allocated 1,200 plus a few materials I had in storage. The results were immediate. The Earth Tiger became noticeably larger and more robust. Its once sleek body now looked much sturdier and tougher, and its traction had significantly improved. For such an old vehicle, this level of upgrade was more than enough. For the recon team, this was an unexpected gift. I opened the garage door to its highest point, drove the newly upgraded Earth Tiger out, closed the door, then opened my friends list, and sent a message to Pei Xiao. The vehicle is ready. Prepare to move out. With that done, I told the 4 little ones not to bother me unless it was an emergency. Then, I headed up to the 3rd floor of the shelter. The large clocks in the gym and the living room both read 8:35 a.m. Only 25 minutes left until 9 a.m., the time the disaster would be announced. Stepping onto the 3rd floor, the excitement that had faded over the past few days suddenly came rushing back. The corners of my lips curled up slightly. I grabbed a clean cloth, dampened it, and walked over to my familiar workbench, bending down to wipe it inch by inch. This table was where I had crafted hundreds of tools, trading them for countless survival resources, and even the blueprints for the Hope. It was where I created batches of explosives that brought back hundreds of reward chests, helping me survive the darkest days. This table was a witness to the growth of the entire base, a silent friend that had seen every sleepless night and every drop of my sweat. The wind starts from the tips of the grass. The waves rise from a single ripple. I wiped away every oil stain, every layer of dust, every speck of debris, until the original color of the wood gradually revealed itself. At the same time, I felt like a sword slowly being drawn from its sheath. A sharp blade is forged through hardship, The plum blossom's fragrance blooms in the bitter cold. Since the end of the welfare disaster, I had been lying low for over half a month. Even though the name God Su was still spoken of like a legend in the World Channel, only I knew the truth. This sword had been sharpened long enough. Now, it was time to unsheath it. Taking a deep breath, I opened the game panel and switched to the chat channel. Before dropping the bombshell on the World Channel, I decided to check the regional channel, something I hadn't looked at in a long time. Due to the welfare disaster, the game reassigned everyone based on geographical location. There are a total of 9,235 people in this channel, and almost all of them are neighbors. The villagers of Hope Village have also joined. Oh, there are actually 912 surviving Phase 2 players. Humanity's adaptability is truly impressive. There will probably be even more survivors later on. With the 2 secret realm trades and the distribution of relief seeds, no one got rich overnight, but the veterans have a much stronger foundation. There's a new feature in the top right corner of the chat channel. I tapped it. Total members, 9,235. Total channel combat power, 35,814. Channel 001, ranked number 1 among all humanity. Damn, there's even a channel leaderboard now? I didn't expect the channel 001 I'm in to be ranked first. Even though I contributed 35,000 combat power, the remaining 814 is still enough to make the top 50. I scrolled down the list, looking at the familiar names. The moment I opened the regional chat, the very first line cracked me up. Liang Jian. Hey bro, the guy who posted the video yesterday about 3 sentences to make a girl willingly give you a battleship. Are you still there? My knife is sharpened. Come to my camp. I'll treat you to some barbecue. Liang Jian. Let me drop an ad. Starfire Cheelin Camp. Coordinates XX. Currently 86 people. The Silver Sand ship still has 40 spots left. Massive discount. Only 200 kilograms of supplies per spot. First come, first served. Kaijun foam. Damn it. The guy guarding our camp's supplies got dead drunk yesterday, and all the wood got soaked in the rain. Anyone got dry wood or wood dried using disaster points. We're buying at 15% above market price. Na Wenxing. Holy crap. I thought Lu Bu was the ultimate badass, but who knew Old Feng's camp had even wilder players? Sun Xian. Foam, your camp only has 20-something people and you want to build a sand ship? Don't get scammed by those wood sellers. That thing needs at least 20 or 30 people just to operate. You think this is a game? WASD to drive, shift to drift, and control for nitro? Sun Xian, let me show you the light. Ditch the ship. Collect old tires, take out the cores, and tie them to a wooden raft. It'll double your buoyancy. Even if the raft flips, the tires will drag your asses all the way to the new world. Gaowen. Sun Xian, you son of a bitch. That stormproof coffin you suggested last time almost killed me. If Su Chen hadn't ended the disaster, I'd be a goner. Now you're telling us to leave it to fate? Don't tell me you're hoarding old tires to sell. Rebecca, I can vouch for that. Old Sun really does have a whole warehouse full of tires. Sun Xian, hey now, don't slander me. Besides, what if Su Chen ends the disaster again like last time? If you build a ship, wouldn't you lose a fortune? Rong Tao Tao. Makes sense. But honestly, since I joined this channel, I haven't seen Su Chen say a single word. Yen Zhong. Kids, don't be impatient. Su Chen isn't as free as we are. Every time he shows up, something huge happens. If he speaks up this time, I guarantee there's going to be a massive shift. Hashimi Ishika. Ah, what a pity. I was planning to ask to join Su Chen's camp. Watching the chat channel remain the same as always, returning to the familiar topic of Su Chen. After just a few sentences, that sense of familiarity made me chuckle. Even though the number of people in the regional channel had exploded, thanks to the butterfly effect from the 2 previous secret realm trades, the veterans still firmly grasped the initial resources and maintained their leading positions. Liang Jian, quick-witted, was now the leader of the Starfire Cheelin camp with over 80 people and a ship that could hold over 100. Kai Junfeng, the middle-aged guy who used to run around begging for recycled trash, was now rich enough to buy wood at premium prices. Sun Xian, the madman who hid from the storm in a coffin, was now dealing in tires and getting ready to make a fortune surfing the waves. All of them had been helped by me at some point. And thanks to that early advantage, they became the leaders of this wasteland. Seeing the people who once relied on me now living better lives, I felt a strange warmth in my heart. I observed for a while longer, watching the legends about Su-chan start to morph into all sorts of crazy myths. I just smiled faintly, then typed my first message after a whole month of silence. Suamo, hey everyone. 3 days left until the disaster. How's everyone's preparation going? A casual greeting, like an old uncle popping into a group chat. But for the regional channel, it was a bomb. It exploded instantly. The channel, which had been peacefully ticking by at a few dozen messages a minute, suddenly spiked to thousands of messages a minute. 2 seconds of dead silence, and then everything erupted. People who were eating, sleeping, or even on the toilet rushed into the channel. What? Su-chan spoke. Here. In our channel 001. Oh my god, he actually said hey everyone. Emojis flooded the screen. Welcomes, hearts, roses, even marriage proposals. The chat scrolled like a hurricane. No one even knew what anyone else was saying anymore. The only thing they knew was, Su-chan had appeared. After watching for a bit, and being completely unable to read anything, I could only laugh helplessly and exit the channel. Alright then. Even though I'm no longer roaming the martial world, my legend still echoes across the realm. Su-chan was still Su-chan. Compared to the rabid fans in the World Channel, the people who had actually met me were even more fanatical. I was absolutely certain that if I posted a recruitment message for crew members right now, hundreds of people would pack their bags and sprint toward Hope Village immediately. That was the influence of Su-chan, and it was also the reason the alien races hated me to the bone. They were terrified of me growing stronger, terrified that humanity would actually have a symbol of faith. But, after exiting the regional channel, I didn't feel complacent. I seriously switched over to the World Channel, where a true storm was waiting to be unleashed. Acid rain, blizzards, rampant plant growth. As of now, the first batch of people who crossed over to this world had survived 3 disasters together. Correspondingly, the number of times they were allowed to speak in the World Channel had also increased to 3. Due to the impact of last night's rain, even though it was only morning, a time when few people were online, the chat speed was still terrifyingly fast. They were describing the storm conditions everywhere. With only 3 days left until the disaster, those with the means had already put their ships into the final testing phase. Those with nothing were thrashing about in their final death throes. But it was exactly at times like this that the World Channel truly showcased the absolute chaos of the wasteland. Without saying a word, I quietly observed the flow of information. Is anyone near coordinates XX? Come help me take out this bastard. I saw him making a deal with the alien races last night. Motherfucker, that camp hasn't collapsed yet? My friend's camp got tricked into opening their gates before, and the aliens attacked them from the inside out. I can't believe these scumbags haven't been wiped out yet. The government? You dreaming? Who has the time to deal with that now? Everyone's busy trying to get on a ship. But honestly, anyone who colludes with the aliens should just drop dead. CIT rescue ship. 32.5 meters long. 18 warriors, 46 sailors. 12 spots left. Price, 3 tons of supplies. If you're broke, don't at me. I'm here to survive, not run a charity. Fuck off, CPIC. We at the Red Sea Shelter have a 49-meter battleship. We're short 122 people. No supplies needed. You just need to know how to swim and have technical skills. Room and board included. We're not planning to go to the new continent, by the way. We're going out to slaughter the alien races. If you just want to survive, stay out of our way. 400-year-old oak wood. Only 50 logs left. Selling out and closing shop. Holy Light Camp recruiting fighters. Requirements. 2 months worth of food, good stamina. Pass the screening and you'll be issued a gun. Loot split 82/18. Anyone sailing on a wooden raft want to team up? I'm at coordinates XX. Motherfasters Kerr, you fishing guy. I've seen you doing nothing but fishing for days. Is this really the time to fish? If you still trust people now, you let them in today, and tomorrow you'll be turned into meat porridge. Open your eyes. Huaxia Sanjin Camp recruiting. 44.5-meter battleship. 85 spots left. As long as you're Chinese, we'll pick you up for free within a 50-kilometer radius. Damn, Chinese people have it so good. Layers of information flooded my eyes. I frowned. If you could say that before yesterday's thunderstorm, everything still maintained a fragile balance, then overnight, once they realized the impending disaster was no joke, they had truly gone mad. Murdering for ships, colluding with alien races, faking alliances only to backstab, extortion, fraud, theft. Things that used to be crimes hidden in the shadows were now exposed in broad daylight. And the most terrifying part? No one cared about how others looked at them anymore. Compared to when I first crossed over, the situation now was 100 times worse. Now, humanity had truly entered the apocalypse. All moral boundaries were torn apart, and primal, animalistic instincts rose up naked and raw. There was no order. The rules that once restrained people had completely collapsed under the pressure of survival after just 2 months. No one trusted the government anymore. No one expected any organization to come save them. Without benefits, without strength, without resources, an ordinary person in the wasteland was no different from trash, worth even less than a log of wood. Other than your family, no one cared if you lived or died. In the end, the pure law of survival had begun. Every word I thought of felt incredibly heavy. Even sitting in a warm underground shelter, wearing combat gear, I still felt a chill run through my entire body. The descent into anarchy had come too fast, at least 4 or 5 months faster than I had anticipated. And as I saw the situation clearly, I suddenly realized something. The greatest threat to humanity in this upcoming maritime disaster wasn't crossing the ocean. It was the opening act of an era of chaos, unfolding in the most horrifying way possible. In that wave, the animalistic nature hidden within everyone had erupted without restraint. Want to reach the new continent? Stop dreaming about living like a farmer, hoarding bit by bit. If you want to live, you have to strike first. You have to steal resources. You have to attack. You have to snatch what you can. Otherwise, the one who dies will be you. Cruel. It was far too cruel. To the point where if this happened on Earth, millions of people would undoubtedly rise up in furious condemnation. But this was the apocalypse. This was the wasteland. All the etiquette and beliefs deeply ingrained in the DNA of modern humans had been wiped clean in just 2 months. All that remained was the brutal law: the strong survive. From now on, the scenes from when we first arrived, people trusting each other, helping each other, overcoming hardships together, would never be repeated. No one trusted strangers anymore. No one dared to entrust their back to anyone. At sea, if 2 rotting rafts crossed paths, there would be only one outcome. One lives, one dies. This collapse of order was a matter for all of humanity. No one could stop it. Even Su Shun would be powerless. No nation would step up to bear the burden. No faction was strong enough to provide backing. Before even setting foot on the new continent, I could already imagine just how chaotic the ocean would be this time. The only comfort was that, among the masses who had gone mad, the percentage of Chinese people was still the lowest. Their characteristic spirit of unity helped them from the very beginning. Amidst the chaotic rhetoric of other national groups, they had quickly banded together and built solid communities. Thanks to that, the Chinese shelters fully displayed the advantages of sticking together early on. Women and the elderly contributed points to build up the area, learned crafting, and supported daily life. The men used those points to forge weapons, upgrade gear, and focus on fighting without having to watch their backs. The division of labor was clear. Those who fought had someone handling the rear, and those in the rear had a goal to strive for. Everyone carried a glimmer of hope. And of course, one couldn't forget Su Shun. With that absolute power as a symbol, the Chinese people still held on to the belief that one day, they could return home. This was an advantage no other nation could replicate. It seemed my assessment of the wasteland situation had been too optimistic because of that lingering hope. But on second thought, maybe it was for the best. The more thoroughly everything descended into chaos, the clearer things would be when sanity finally returned. It wasn't a bad thing. It was just a bit too rushed. I gently rubbed the stubble on my chin. For those who had gone so mad they'd collude with the alien races, I had absolutely no pity left in my heart. In this wasteland, if you give up on yourself, no one has any reason to save you. No one is God. No one is obligated to be a saint. And when it came to that kind of scum, I had made up my mind. I would show absolutely no mercy. I stopped scrolling through the chat and checked the time. Exactly 3 minutes until 9 a.m. I closed my eyes to rest my mind, simultaneously pulling out the draft I had prepared the night before. This time, I didn't plan on saying much, nor did I intend to cause a massive shockwave that might affect the future scene through the heaven-stealing talisman. At 9 a.m. on the World Channel, all I wanted to send was a simple announcement. My message, Sumo, to all those still alive in the wasteland, hello. I am Sumo, a survivor just like you. There are only 3 days left until the disaster. I'm very glad to meet everyone on the World Channel again. Of course, I also wish I didn't have to speak up today. But unfortunately, I've just received a piece of extremely crucial information that directly affects the survival of all humanity. After careful consideration, I've decided to share it with everyone for free. I will announce this information in 5 minutes. Notify your family, your friends, anyone near you. I will only say this once. Whether you live or die in the upcoming disaster is up to you. A single message was capped at 300 characters, but anything over 100 characters was flagged by the system as a long message and subjected to extremely strict censorship. If marked as spam, the message would be deleted and the sender would be permanently shadow banned on the World Channel. No matter what they said afterward, no one would see it. This punishment was even more terrifying than a chat ban. Because of this, almost no one dared to post long messages in the World Channel. But the moment my message popped up, before anyone could even read the contents clearly, the channel exploded. Good Lord, what year is it? What kind of idiot is still posting long ads? Retard. With that mindset, everyone glanced at the sender's name. And the exact moment they saw it, boom. A golden ID, blazing like the sun, accompanied by a name so familiar it was etched into their memories. Sumo. For the countless people who had dreamed of becoming Su Shun, that moment felt like a meteor crashing straight into their heads. Unlike the previous times when I only stirred up the regional channel, this time, the entire world chat system crashed. No one could send anything. The very last line on every single screen was my message. The message I wrote was very simple, with clear wording, so that even foreigners using translation tools could understand it immediately. There wasn't a single obscure Chinese idiom. And because of that, the entire wasteland exploded in that very instant. Unlike previous times, when people would marvel and invite each other to watch the gods speak in the regional channel, this time it was the entire world. No matter where they were, what they were doing, or whether they were busy or not, everyone immediately rushed into the World Channel. While millions of people hadn't even had time to react, I had already prepared my second message. This one was also limited to 300 characters. I used simple numerical data. I published the detailed per-minute rainfall of the apocalyptic waterfall that would crash down in 3 days. To ordinary people, these numbers might be a bit hard to grasp, but I believe that, with the current hype, experts would step up to explain it immediately. Then, everyone would know exactly what they were about to face and start figuring out how to survive. 5 minutes later, seeing that the World Channel still hadn't recovered, I tried sending the second message. It went through smoothly. The message popped up instantly. Boom. While everyone was still struggling to type a single word, my second message struck like a thunderbolt. But when they read the contents, everyone was stunned into silence. What? In the first 14 minutes, rainfall exceeds 3,000 millimeters? From the 15th minute onward, a mindless waterfall crashes down, dumping like the sky is falling every 10 seconds. Unable to speak in the World Channel, people switched to the regional channels to scream, privately messaging each other to ask what these numbers meant. But there was one common thread. No one dared to doubt my words. Not a single person. Even the massive shelters established by the government didn't raise any questions. The reason was simple. Everyone knew the ocean disaster was coming, that the water would rise incredibly high. But until I spoke up, only I and the leadership of Hope Village knew exactly how it would arrive. Before this, people were coming up with all sorts of theories every hour. A Noah-style flood, tsunamis, water erupting from underground. Humans have great imaginations, but no one had thought of this. A heavenly waterfall crashing down on such an inhumane scale. And so, everyone started screaming. Cover the ships. Hurry. If we don't finish, we're all dead. Fuck. Our ship doesn't have a roof. We're screwed. This damn wasteland. I'll punch it twice and just die. Is this the kind of disaster a carbon-based life form could even conceive? 10 minutes later, When the World Channel recovered, I looked at the tidal wave of messages and gave a slight nod. I didn't send a third message. Even though I had one more chance to speak, this was enough. The impact this time had far exceeded my expectations. Over the next 3 days, whether human or alien, everyone still had a little time to prepare. As long as they prepared well, it wasn't impossible to survive. And as the one who initiated all of this, for the next 3 days, the only weight left on my shoulders was one final task. Pei Xiao, let's move out. 12 o'clock direction, the basin. Until I give the order, no matter what you encounter, do not turn back. In this wasteland, there were quite a few people who survived the brutal early days through sheer luck. Some picked up precious items and soared like fish taking to water. But as of right now, among those who had made waves through the first 2 disasters, I was the only one left. I was like a lone tree surviving in the desert. And this time, by announcing the full nature of the disaster in a way no one expected, I officially declared my return. After giving the order to Pei Xiao and messaging a few more details to Shinku, I stood up and stretched my shoulders, feeling refreshed. On the World Channel, even though over 20 minutes had passed, the debate hadn't cooled down at all. Solo players were discussing how to use their facilities to survive. Groups were figuring out how to protect their ships, how to build roofs, how to block the water, all sorts of ideas. Scrolling through, I even saw Hope Village's advertisements squeezed in among the arguments. But despite all the conflicting opinions, no one denied it. This was real. My words were real. The disaster was truly coming exactly like that. It seems I still underestimated my own influence. No wonder people keep targeting me. If I maintain my first place ranking through a few more disasters, the power of my words might become terrifyingly strong. By then, my status wouldn't just surpass everyone else's. It might even rival the game system itself. I shook my head with a faint smile, looking at the spotless desk, then glanced over at the machines running at full capacity to produce artillery shells. Right now, the only remaining variable was one thing. I had to ensure the alien races didn't back out of their attack plan. In the future timeline, there was too little information, so I wasn't sure if they still planned to raid the basin like in the original script. Therefore, I had to light a fire now. And I had prepared this plan meticulously in advance. Connie, come with me. I need your help with something today. Called upon so suddenly, Connie was startled but immediately followed me with a happy expression. A priest, holding an umbrella, pushed open the thick metal door of the shelter and stepped out into the drizzling rain. I didn't say anything, and Connie didn't ask. Ever since becoming Oreo's kin, Connie had adjusted her mindset. She was no longer a commoner, but a true subordinate. With her inherited racial memories and over 10 years of experience living in a tribe, Connie understood how to be a subordinate that pleased her master far better than the villagers did. Keeping her boundaries, never overstepping, never doing anything unnecessary. One man and one priest quickly crossed the muddy path and approached the Hope ship, the massive vessel lying dormant like a giant beast. I turned the key, opened the cockpit door, signaled for Connie to get in, then started the engine. I pulled the power switch and sat down in the captain's chair like a king. You probably know what I need you to do today, right? Connie immediately nodded. I do. But, Master, please rest assured. Ever since I joined Oreo's kin, there's been no turning back. You can trust me completely now. The alien chat channel is a total mess right now. As long as we add a little spice, I guarantee there won't be any mistakes this time. Oh, it's already getting chaotic. I tapped a rhythm on the steel console. Hearing Connie's sincere master, the corners of my lips curled up slightly. The first time I connected to Connie's core, I only heard one piece of information. Claus had ordered all alien races crossing the border to halt. Other than that, no one said much. Everyone thought it was just a normal defensive measure by the 5 great royal clans. But after just a few days of quiet observation, I discovered that the halt order, under Claus's propaganda, had started to mutate. It all started 12 days ago, when Claus officially announced they had a plan. They declared they would annihilate the Demon Sioux, the entire alien race, through a massive celebration. At first, everyone knew it was just an act, praising him publicly, cursing him privately. Many aliens praised Claus to the heavens in the public channel, but the moment they switched to private messages, they cursed him out. The reason was simple. The royal clans were strong, sure, But compared to Demon Su, the man who had slaughtered a god, they were a joke. To kill me, in the eyes of the aliens, it would take at least several ancestral gods attacking simultaneously, relying solely on the 5 great royal clans. Yeah, right. Joke of the month. But no one expected that what everyone thought was just a show would gradually become real. Even the royal clans, who originally just wanted to put on a performance, ended up getting reverse brainwashed by the endless, day-after-day cheering. Just imagine it. Opening the chat panel every day, no one was talking about the wasteland anymore. No one was discussing hunting. Even the trash talk the aliens loved so much was gone. There was only one topic left. Demon Su is about to die. The alien races are preparing to kill humanity's strongest. The royal clans are achieving a great victory. Demon Su is going to be butchered. On the first day, you'd just smirk. On the second day, it was still funny. But by the third, fourth, and fifth days, every time you opened the chat, you saw that same topic. Every time you tried to chat about something else, before you could even type a few words, the conversation was dragged back to Demon Su. The alien races, a bunch of idiots with a collective IQ of 250, could they handle it? The result? After just 4 days, their psychological defenses collapsed. By the 5th day, a small group, less than 1%, started to genuinely wonder, wait, is Demon Su actually going to die? Why is everyone saying that? Once that thought appeared, it spread like a pyramid scheme. The moment the floodgates opened, it surged out of control. Going from 1% to 10% only took 2 days. But going from 10% to 99%? That only took a single morning. It also coincided with the few days I intentionally went into hiding, making everyone think I had actually kicked the bucket. And then, when Claus, that show-off, loudly declared again that they were going to kill Demon Su, this time, they truly believed it. In just a few days, the aliens' morale skyrocketed. There was even a magical formula widely circulated by the alien geniuses. Demon Su killed a god, therefore Demon Su is a god. If I stomp on Demon Su, I'm stomping on a god, which means I'm stronger than a god, making me the god of gods. Fueled by this delusion of grandeur, the trash-tier aliens who normally wouldn't dare squeak started running their mouths, joining the god-stomping movement. The standard greeting in private messages was now just, "Did you stomp today?" Of course, the bigger the bubble, the more tragic the pop. Connie, after being implanted with a language chip and learning Chinese, now understood memes, puns, and even started trash-talking like a pro. Hearing my question, she replied immediately, "Exactly, master. You just need to connect to my core to see the spectacle. It's so beautiful, it'll give you chills." Seeing Connie's lion face looking so smug, I couldn't help but smirk. I connected to her core right away. A pale green light flashed. The interface shifted, and the screen turned into Connie's alien information panel. I opened the World Channel, quietly joining the brain-dead conference. And just as expected, the place was blowing up. Excerpt from the Alien World Channel, Shadow Moon Mink. Holy shit. Does anyone have contacts on the human side? Confirm this for me. My insider says Su Chen has appeared again. He said the ocean disaster is going to fall from the sky like a waterfall every 10 seconds. Wasn't Demon Su supposed to be dying? Ice Music Pangolin. Impossible. What does Demon Su know about the disaster? He's just a mortal. Even the ancestral gods haven't said anything. What right does he have to know beforehand? Is he just talking out of his ass? Four-eyed shadow pig. Shut up, Ice Music. You scream every day? If you don't believe it, go ask him directly and see if he's bluffing. The guy literally killed a god, and you're still comparing him to your ancestral gods? Your ancestral gods are nothing but small fry in front of Demon Su. Shut it. Ice Music Pangolin. You're the dog, you damn pig. Yesterday you were talking about slicing off his arms to roast, and now you're flipping sides this fast? What a coward. If I see you on the sea, I'll beat you to a pulp. Orange Fire Macaque. Enough. If Demon Su said it, he's not just playing around. He gains nothing from warning them. Turn your brains on for a second, please. If it's true, we need to run immediately. Purple Cloud Rat. He's definitely not talking nonsense. Our scouts confirmed that Crimson Moon and Dawn Sword are both making emergency moves. Honestly, it's 80 to 90% true. He only said it out of some so-called savior complex. Sun Mammoth. Crimson Moon and Dawn Sword are both 5,000 man camps. If they're moving, something is definitely up. Damn, it's a good thing we didn't dare make a move on Sumo, or we'd all be dead. Snowless flying centipede. Where are the royal clans? Sucking up so many resources every month, and now playing dead. Sumo still isn't dead. Didn't you say you had a brilliant plan? Or are you colluding with him, using us as cannon fodder? Dragon Ape, are you retarded? Who's colluding? Claus is still verifying it. Stop spreading rumors.